like green eggs and ham.
Well, hello.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. Are we gonna have a good show? Of course. So, do we have more news on the Epstein front? Yes, we do. This time about his New Mexico ranch, including the question of, are bodies buried there? Yes, that's a real question.
According to Michael Tracy, no. There has been no foul play ever involving Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
In fact, we're being irresponsible even bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, no one should ever talk about it again. Okay, so that's old TYT versus new TYT, kind of.
Dude, wonderful track record with former employees. We're totally knocking it out of the park.
We do have some successful ones.
Do we?
Well, we do.
Ryan Grimm.
Yeah. No, we've had some great contributors. Anyways, Tara Palmieri against Michael Tracy later. Tara's on the show from time to time. These days, Michael obviously used to be. And we've got updates on Iran for you guys that are critical, and we're gonna get to that in a second. And then some domestic politics, AOC.
Kenny Clips. Kenny Clips is a national treasure.
Well, that's definitely
I don't want anyone to think that I'm throwing him into the group of embarrassing former employees.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. No, are you kidding me? There's like 1 million that are super successful. And yeah, there's been a couple of guys that went sideways. That's life. You know, by the way, just real quick on that, in case you guys wanna know, like, we opened up the window of opportunity here. And a lot of great people came in. And some bad guys came, or some not so great guys like Dave Rubin came in. And that's what happens when you widen the window. You get good sides and bad sides, but it's, in my opinion, much better to widen it than, oh, you have to be in this narrow lane.
I love that narrow lane. I jump in it.
No, you don't.
Okay.
You hate that narrow lane. Anyway, let's do it.
Let's give you an update on Iran.
Iran is going to be closing parts of the Strait of Hormuz today, a vital shipping lane, as it conducts naval exercises.
We need to look at what's going on in the region. Just over the last 24 hours, 50 US fighter jets with their tankers have been moving from the US and from Europe to bases in the Middle East. F-35s, F-22s, F-16s. The US military buildup in the region is very significant. And I don't think Donald Trump is moving all those assets to the region just in order to bluff.
Well, the second round of talks between the United States and Iran took place, and we're getting mixed signals, Cenk. Okay, I have no idea, because on one hand, you have the Iranian side saying, we've made some progress, actually. This happened to be a productive meeting, a constructive meeting. But then you hear from, Axios reporter and Israeli insider, Barak Ravid, and he says, well, he makes it seem as though war is all but certain. So what do you make of all this? What are your 2 cents?
Yeah, so there's 2 different parts of this, which is, are we gonna start the war? And then number 2 is, why are we starting the war? So for why, there's some indisputable facts that I can't wait to share with you guys. And for, are we going to start it? Well, there's 2 very contradictory tea leaves that you're talking about, Anna. We're gonna share them both, and then I'm gonna weigh in on which one I think is more likely to be true.
Now, first, a little bit of context. These negotiations took place in Oman, and Oman's foreign minister was essentially the mediator as these talks took place. He did mediate a previous round of talks earlier this month. Now, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are involved in these negotiations, which gives me little to no hope. But nonetheless, on Monday, Trump said aboard Air Force One that he would be involved in the talks indirectly, and that Iran wanted to make a deal. And just last week, President Trump said in a social media post that he himself allegedly prefers a deal with Iran, but that, if one cannot be brokered, we will just have to see what happens next or what the outcome will be. So, he has been in some cases vague, in other cases specific, in saying that he wants a deal to be made. And then sometimes he issues threats. Now, it looks like there was some progress, according to the Iranians. There was some progress in the latest round of talks, and that's according to specifically Iran's foreign minister, who says that the atmosphere in this round of negotiations was more constructive. Good progress had been made in comparison with the first meeting. But he also cautioned that both sides have positions that will take some time to get closer to each other. The path to an agreement has been started, but that does not mean that we can reach an agreement quickly. So the next steps include Iran essentially drafting a proposal on how to close the gap of disagreement between the United States and Iran. They are to share that proposal in the next 2 weeks. But the biggest sticking point, as we've talked about on the show already, is the fact that Israel wants Iran to give up its ballistic missiles. Actually, let me pause for a second. The biggest obstacle to a peace deal or a new nuclear deal is the fact that Israel doesn't want peace. They want regime change in Iran. So it is unsurprising that they keep moving the goalposts and making these negotiations more and more impossible. So what do I mean by that? Israel wants Iran to give up its ballistic missiles, which is nonsense. You give up your ballistic missiles, then you have no way of defending yourself when Israel inevitably attacks, because Israel attacks all of its neighbors, multiple countries in the region. They've bombed 7 countries in the last 2 years. So with that in mind, Ayatollah Khamenei called demands to limit the range of Iran's ballistic missiles illogical, arguing that such demands interfered with a nation's right to possess weapons of self-defense. Quote, any country without deterrent weapons will be crushed under the feet of its enemies, he said. Iran instead focused its offer on a plan to dilute its enriched uranium stockpile. And the access that would be provided to the UN nuclear inspectorate, the IAEA, to Iran's bombed nuclear sites. They've been blocking the IAEA from, reaching those nuclear sites ever since the 12-day war occurred. But I want to go to one other video here, because the Ayatollah seems to have accepted that we're headed toward war, because while you have the foreign minister trying to make peace, Khamenei has issued some threats. Let's watch.
It seems to them that the US president keeps saying this: the US army is the strongest army in the world. The strongest army in the world may sometimes get slapped so hard that it cannot stand up straight. They keep saying we've sent an aircraft carrier towards Iran. Very well. An aircraft carrier is certainly a dangerous piece of equipment. But more dangerous than the carrier is the weapon that can send that carrier towards the bottom of the sea.
So what do you make of those statements, Cenk? Because when I see that, I think to myself, okay, the Ayatollah is expecting a war to happen, and he doesn't seem afraid. Now, he could be bluffing, but I also remember the fact that China's getting more involved in terms of arming the Iranians.
Yep.
There is some reporting indicating that Russia will also get involved. Are we headed toward World War III?
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far quite yet, but let's break it down one by one. So if we care about the terms of this negotiations, then actually things are looking great. Why? Because there's 3 basic terms that the Americans started with. You have to get rid of your uranium program entirely. You have to get rid of all of your ballistic missiles, and you have to get rid of everyone in the country. No, I'm kidding. But the third one was also ridiculous. You're not allowed to have any regional allies or proxies, and we now control your foreign policy, right? So Iran said the last 2 are non-starters. We're not going to let you control our foreign policy, and we're not going to get rid of our ballistic missiles. Then we'll have no defense at all. Not just Israel, Saudi Arabia, or any enemy of ours could just simply take us over. So those are non-starters. So where we are in the negotiations are, the Iranians say that it looks like the Americans have gotten past those 2 non-starters. We're mainly talking about the uranium. And in terms of the uranium, there's an easy deal to be had, it looks like, from what I'm reading, which is Iran says, look, we're not going to end the program entirely, but with the ones we've brought up to 60% enrichment, we will hand those over. And we will allow the IAEA to come in and inspect our nuclear sites, and we will not enrich beyond nuclear energy levels. And so they have made almost every concession that they can make on that ground. So that's not the question. Whether we can get to a deal, we can get to a deal. It sounds like within 5 minutes. The question is, are these negotiations real? So we know for a fact that Iran wants a deal. They don't want to get killed. We know for a fact that Israel does not want a deal. And they don't, like they said in the beginning, weapons of mass destruction, the same BS they always use. Oh my God, they're gonna have nukes any second. They've been saying for 20 years. Okay, we wipe out their nuclear program. They say, oh my God, they now have missiles and rocks and pebbles and cocoa pebbles. And we have to remove everything from Iran.
Those cocoa pebbles are dangerous.
Yeah, let alone the fruity kind. Although I'm not sure that's allowed in Iran. Anyway, I'm kidding. All right, a little levity to a serious story. So Israel doesn't want it. Then the question is, America. Does America want it?
No.
Okay, now, when we get inside America, and I'll come back to what's gonna happen if the war starts. This is why I get so frustrated with corporate media, because they're pretending that there's a real debate in this country. There's no debate at all. No. There's not a single actual voter, Republican or Democrat or independent, that isn't Israel first, that says, oh my God, my life would be so much better if we attacked Iran. Like I just can't, is there a kitchen table in Kansas or Missouri somewhere talking about like, God, I just wish the government would attack Iran. God, you know what, if we started a war with Iran, I bet my grocery prices would be lower and I bet my wages would be higher. If I had one thing that I wanted from the US government, it's to start a war in the Middle East that is 4 times the size of Iraq, because that's what Iran is, and much better equipped. So literally no actual American voter wants this. Only the Israel supporters in America, whether they're assets, agents, or just like, rah, I love Israel and America should work only for Israel. So those are the, very literally, show me one American, if you're a mainstream media reporter, show me one American who says this will help my life. That is not Israel first. You won't be able to find one. So literally no one wants this war, and Trump ran on anti-war. Democrats claim they're even more anti-war. So the question is, the very core of this question, and it is critical, do we run our own government or does Israel run our government?
We already know the answer to that though.
But if we know the answer to that, Anna, and you're 100% sure, because I'm
100% sure, I would bet my life on it.
No, here's how I view it, right? Does Israel have massive, disproportionate influence on the government?
Yes.
Obviously, right? So now the only question is it 80%, 90%?
100%, Cenk.
Hold on.
Why are we even having this discussion? It's a waste of time. Literally, it's a waste of time.
No, 100%, or 100%.
It is 100%.
But Anna, look, the reason we're having this discussion is not because we're corporate media and we like to play ass-slap football and we have fake conversations. No, we're having this discussion
because you're the eternal optimist and I'm a realist, okay? Israel controls our government 100%. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican sitting in the Oval Office. They're gonna be Netanyahu or whoever the prime minister of Israel is. They're gonna be that individual's dog.
So I hear you completely, and I think that you're probably right, okay? But what I'm laying out as a marker for the audience is, well, you'll know soon. So if we don't attack Iran, it doesn't mean that Israel doesn't have any influence. We still give them $330 billion. We've helped them start all the other wars. We still shovel all sorts of money towards them, right? But it would mean that they don't have 100% control over the US government because they definitely want this war. And if we don't go to war, that means they don't have 100% control. Okay, if we do go to war, this conversation is over. Israel not only controls the government 100%, like our government is compromised. I want that to sink in for you. The US government, if that happens, is totally compromised. It is actually not the US government, it's the Israeli government. And that is an unbelievable thing to discuss right now. And that is where we are.
We deployed our military to fight Israel's war in Iraq. It was all based on a false premise of weapons of mass destruction, but at the end of the day, Israel wanted us to invade Iraq, and we did, okay? They sent 0 IDF soldiers, whereas we lost thousands of American troops, okay? That's point number 1. Point number 2, we are in a massive amount of debt. And we continue as a country to take out more debt to handle that money or hand that money over to Israel, they don't pay for their own weapons. We pay for their weapons, even though we are drowning in debt. Our little American empire is declining like you wouldn't believe, but hey, Israel's more important. So like to say, oh, is it 80%, 90%? It's 100%, it's been 100% for some time now. And it's about time for people to take the blinders off and realize the pretty dire situation we're in as Americans. Because right now, we are literally having a debate and a conversation about going to war, invading a foreign country, not for us, not because it's gonna benefit us, but on behalf of Israel. And it's never been more overt and obvious. Previous wars that we fought on Israel's behalf, literally arming Al-Qaeda in Syria on behalf of Israel, all of that garbage that we got engaged in. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, like the debate is over. In my world, in my view, the debate is over.
So I hear you, and to that point, today I was thinking, look, there was a confluence of events that led us to go into Iraq. One of them was not 9/11 because Saddam was against Al-Qaeda. So if anybody's telling you that, they're a verified liar, right? So weapons of mass destruction, you could say that some people weren't sure about that, etc. But why? But we all know that it was the oil companies, the banks who were speculating, the defense contractors, and now Israel, right? But then I thought this today, Anna. Yes, but the oil companies, defense contractors, etc., they would have won no matter which country we attacked.
That's right.
Why did we pick Iraq of all countries? At the time, the Israeli prime minister said that was their #1 enemy. Now they say Iran is their #1 enemy. So look, I don't think any of this is that complicated. I tend to agree with Anna.
Thank you.
The reason that I'm saying what I'm saying now is because I like to lay out markers ahead of time so you guys can all see it with your own eyes, right? So that's why, for example, we said if the camera in the hallway is not working when Epstein was killed, that means somebody killed him. If it is working, it means he committed suicide. You lay down a marker before you find out so that you see who's right and who's wrong. Now, today, mainstream media can say, oh no, we just disagree. We think the people in Kansas and Hawaii and Rhode Island can't wait to attack Iran. But after the war starts, when like literally no American wanted it, they can't say that Israel doesn't control our government. That's absurd. It's patently absurd.
But you know what? I think it's gonna actually work out really well for Israel's PR campaign. Maybe if they just buy more bots on X, they can convince Americans to not hate Israel after they dragged us into a war that we shouldn't be involved in at all. On its behalf, by the way. On its behalf. Fully on its behalf. By the way, I just want to go to a few videos featuring Barak Ravid, because he was interviewed by CNN today. And I thought he had some interesting things to say. So I started feeling maybe a tiny bit of optimism after hearing what the Iranian side of these negotiations had to say. It seemed like there had been a little bit of positive progress. But remember, Barak Ravid is an Israeli, he's an Israeli insider, and so he would probably have a better sense of what's going on than we would, obviously. And here's what he had to say about the alleged breakthrough that took place during the negotiations.
As far as I know, I don't think any breakthrough happened in those talks. What I heard from US officials after the talks was they say that the talks went as expected. That's the quote, as expected. It's not really as positive of a readout as the Iranians gave after the talks. And I think I'm not sure that at the moment there's really any agreement between the US and Iran, even when it comes to guiding principles.
He says that, he also said, by the way, in the context of that interview, that there's no daylight between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. That might be literally the first time Barak Ravid is on record saying that there's no daylight between them. Because every other report has made it appear as though Trump is, like wagging his finger, or Biden was wagging his finger at the Israelis. No such thing, that did not happen. But look, I also happen to agree with what you're about to hear Ravid say, because he makes a really good point about the military buildup in the region. Take a look.
We need to look at what's going on in the region. Just over the last 24 hours, 50 US fighter jets with their tankers have been moving from the US and from Europe to bases in the Middle East. F-35s, F-22s, F-16s. The U.S. military buildup in the region is very significant. And I don't think Donald Trump is moving all those assets to the region just in order to bluff. And if there's not going to be any real tangible concession from the Iranians, all of those assets will be used pretty soon. At the moment, we have no evidence to show that the Iranians have put something tangible on the table. And this is what the US wanted. I heard it from at least 3 different US officials.
I happen to agree with him. I mean, it would be one thing if you send a military asset here or there just to kind of threaten them. But that's not what's happening here. A third of our Navy assets are already deployed to the region. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, so that was the counterpoint I was gonna get to. So the good news is that if the negotiations are real and we care about the terms, this deal is gonna be pretty easy to make, right? The bad news is, if you made me bet, I would say that the negotiations are not at all real. They're just buying time for our aircraft carriers, and by the way, our ground troops to arrive, right? So, and that's exactly what's been happening. And Donald Trump on several occasions has bragged about, I was pretending to do a peace deal, and then I was just waiting for the surprise attack them. Well, knucklehead, when you say that, next time you're pretending to do a peace deal like this, everybody's prepared, right? And of course, as you guys know, the Israelis regularly murder peace negotiators, so they never want peace. And they tried to murder these particular negotiators in Iran as well. So, okay, but the bad news is, in terms of whether it's a real negotiation or not, is how many assets we've moved into the area. So I used to think that moving those kind of assets in, like for example, off the coast of Venezuela, was Trump's way of saber rattling, right?
And coercion.
And he loves to bluff, and that's a great way to bluff. So rationally, I thought maybe he's setting up a bluff. And by the way, if I was in charge, I might do things like that, right? I would not want to go to war at all. But the threat of war can get you some extractions and negotiations, etc., right? But this is way too many troops. And why are the transport planes going? 150 transport planes? If you want to bluff, maybe you send in 10, 20, 50, 150. So bringing in ground troops, not 1 aircraft carrier, 2 aircraft carriers. I mean, we're bringing half our freaking fleet there. Great. No, very, very likely we're going to attack. And so they're not, and remember guys, even bringing the fleet there costs a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, it does, right? You're exactly right about that.
And now back to the Ayatollah's comment. Guys, so our job is to analyze the news in kind of almost a microscopic fashion. So what we do is we look to see how they react in different situations. When the war was being threatened the first time around, the Iranians were far more reserved. And one, they didn't want the war. And so they were like, hey, listen, let's make a deal. We'll figure this thing out, etc. Number 2, I'm not sure that they were equipped well enough back then. Now they've made a deal with the Chinese. They definitely have new weapons. They definitely feel better equipped, right?
Yeah, they do.
So the Ayatollah is almost taunting us now. So all that means is he's more confident.
And guys, you have to think about how China is likely going to act based on its own interests, because what we just did in Venezuela hurt China because China was getting its oil from Venezuela. China also gets its oil from Iran. So China's involvement isn't simply because they're like, oh, we're besties with Iran. No, they want to protect their own interests.
And they have a second interest. China would love this war.
They would. They want to watch us bleed out.
Exactly. Yeah. So China's like, oh, you're gonna go waste your entire fortune. By the way, money you're borrowing from me that you're gonna pay interest on for the rest of your lives. And you're gonna spend it all on fighting Israel's war? And you're gonna get bogged down in Iran with all those mountains and 4 times the size of Iraq. And we just gave them weapons that could sink your aircraft carriers. Oh, I mean, you couldn't gift wrap it for China better than this.
Can I also, this is gonna add to our conversation, but I'm gonna read something to you. It's framing that really got under my skin. I wanna get your thoughts on it. This is from the New York Times, quote, countries in the region worry that a potential American strike and Iranian retaliation that could draw in Israel could destabilize the Middle East and endanger US allies in the Arab world that host American soldiers. Oh no, could it potentially draw in Israel? Wouldn't it be nice if Israel fought its own wars and didn't drag us into fighting its wars for them?
So the New York Times couldn't find a single connection between Epstein and Israel. When Epstein is making like dozens of deals on Israel's behalf, including buying them cyber weapons. But now the New York Times is like, can you imagine if beloved Israel was hurt for the war they wanted? I mean, my God, we should fight all of their wars and have all of our guys die and spend trillions on the global war on terror. Global war on Israel's enemies. We already wasted $8 trillion fighting these wars. How much is Israel going to bleed us dry?
As much as they can.
Yeah, and the media will go, no, everyone's an anti-Semite and you all better shut up. And if you don't agree to your own robbery, then you hate a random ethnic group. We had nothing to do with that. All right, last thing, guys. Look, Israel knows that if we have our guys get hurt in the middle of that attack, that Trump and all of our media, who are all apparently, and this is also new to me, like I knew that our media was biased in favor of Israel. That's not complicated. I didn't know that it was just a monopoly. Like when they refused to acknowledge a single connection that Epstein has to Israel, I was like, wow. So the whole corporate media works for Israel as well.
Yeah.
So what they will do the minute we lose a soldier is they won't say, God damn it, Israel dragged us into this war for no reason. They'll say, we have to go larger. Oh, the America's been hurt.
We need a surge.
It's Iran. Iran's a boogeyman. Iran's terrible. We need a bigger war. And you'll see pundits all over cable news, bigger war, bigger war. And then they'll never talk about Israel again. Because they'll be like, oh, this is America versus Iran. Iran killed our soldiers. We have to murder all of them on behalf of Israel. Come on, it's so obvious. That's why it's so frustrating. And guys, I'm super worried about it because I've been telling you this for a long time. You regular viewers will remember me saying this on many, many clips. At some point, we're gonna lose an aircraft carrier. They're sitting ducks.
No, our soldiers are gonna die. And when they die, I want you all to remember they did it for Israel, okay? I'm sure everyone will feel better about that. We gotta take a break, we'll be right back.
All right, let's go to Super Chat. Titan of Olympus 03 says, Cenk, where have you been? I'm with Anna here. It's already 100% confirmed without doubt we are owned and ruled from Tel Aviv. Sand Fanatic 1 says, Iran has hypersonics from China. Carriers have no defense. If they have anything on Trump, they'll use it as they see fit as their last and best chance to get us to attack.
Isn't Mossad located underground in Tel Aviv or something?
Who is?
I don't remember if it was Mossad or some other military wing of the Israeli government.
Oh, I'm not sure about that, but Mossad actually has its headquarters in the middle of Tel Aviv.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
Because of course they hide behind human shields.
I just don't want to hear any crying from Israel when the inevitable happens, because Iran is not a threat to us. So like when this war gets popping, okay, I'm not worried about their ballistic missiles hitting the United States. Israel should worry though.
Yeah, no, they're gonna want us to cry for them.
I'm not gonna cry.
No,
I'm not gonna cry. Are you kidding me?
No, you don't get to start a war and kill tons of innocent Iranians and then go, oh, Israelis have been killed. Remember, Israelis are worth a billion other lives.
Yeah, we would prefer not to go to this war.
Yeah.
Than not to get engaged.
If 8 Israelis died, that is worse than the entire world dying, right? That's their attitude, and don't pretend it isn't. You're being absurd if you pretend it isn't. They just slaughtered about 100,000 Palestinians without blinking an eye. They don't think that the rest of us are human. So whatever. Prove otherwise. Show Israel having an ounce of compassion for anyone that isn't Israeli. Never. Oh my God, their neighbors. They'd rather slaughter them than say hi in the morning. Okay, make it make sense, says Cenk. How did we miss this? On January 22nd, the Kansas legislature passed Article 5 convention of the state's resolution for term limits, a balanced budget, and limiting federal authority, making Kansas state number 20. So I am 100% in favor of a constitutional convention, or a convention of the states is what it's actually called, or an Article 5 convention is the most accurate statement. And so there are different ways to get there. This is not the Wolfpack way, but a different way, but I'm okay with it. The right wing loves it. The establishment despises it. They're like, not a convention. That would be real change and we can't block it. So vote for a convention in every state in every way. That's the only way we can get our constitution back from these sick sons of bitches who sold out our country. Rose Turner 13 on YouTube member section says, Cenk, love you brother, but Anna's right. We need to stop wasting time trying to devil's advocate this situation and come up with solutions. Rage Rock for now says, wait, I thought their nuclear sites were obliterated. Always a new excuse. We have to do what Israel wants. Otherwise, we're all anti-Semites. D. Mitchell says, honestly, take whatever the US says with a grain of salt. Unfortunately, we have a track record of saying one thing and doing another. Conservative Wambulance writes in on Twitch. Holy 58 months, Batman. It's actually been much longer time that I've been listening. Thanks, TYT. I love when Cenk gets so mad he starts getting all shiny from sweat. He's my spirit animal. She would say yes when you were agreeing with her. Okay, Happy Warrior Dragon, thank you for gifting a sub. You guys are amazing. We'll see you in a sec. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Drunken Monkey, which I love, and Dapper Dan 1993. Thank you guys for joining. Hit the join button below. Huge difference. We're not backed by the huge private equity guys, most of whom I found out recently love Israel, and also the venture capital guys. So that's all we got is you guys for now. So thank you for letting us be an honest news program, unlike all of mainstream media. All right, CDN Norse Dog Dad, thank you for gifting a membership, and thank you to our sponsor Shopify. We actually also use Shopify. Use the QR code there or shopify.com/TYT. Why? If you want to set up a shop, it's not close. We tried everything. Shopify is awesome. It's personal experience. We're positive. They've got really convenient ways to get to the shop pay button, etc. If you're setting up your own shop, please use these guys. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/TYT. That's shopify.com/TYT. All right, Anna, what's next?
Well, yesterday we talked a little bit about AOC at the Munich Security Conference, and she had one answer that she was getting a lot of heat for because she acknowledged that what's going down in Gaza is in fact a genocide. And we gave her a lot of credit for that because that was the accurate answer. Then there was the rest of her appearance at the Munich Security Conference, and I thought it was worth discussing it a little bit. So let's get into it.
We look at what happened in Venezuela, for example. It is not a remark on who Maduro was as a leader. He canceled elections. He was an anti-democratic leader. That doesn't mean that we can kidnap a head of state and engage in acts of war just because the nation is below the equator.
Well, Venezuela is actually north of the equator. And look, everyone saw that moment and made a huge deal about it. And to be quite frank, I don't think that's that big of a deal, okay? I mean, it was a mistake. Worse things have happened. Unfortunately, worse things did happen in the context of the Munich Security Conference, which Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democratic congresswoman, of course, attended. And it was kind of like her big debut on the international stage. And the whole point of the Munich Security Conference is to discuss foreign policy matters, security matters. And Cenk, before we get to some more of these highlights or lowlights, depending on how you want to view it, your 2 cents.
Yeah, I thought she said some good things and some bad things. We'll give you both. But at the end, I want to give you a line that no one's talking about that I think is actually more important than the rest. So let's tell you how she did.
So I want to be as accurate as possible because she did attend the Munich Security Conference, and then immediately after that, she attended a different event in Berlin. And so the video that you're about to watch is from that second event that she went to. It's known as TU Berlin. So here's the second half of what she had to say about Venezuela, which I think is way more problematic than her equator gaffe. So let's take a look.
Rubio and the Trump administration left Maduro's regime intact. And so even whatever moralizing they have about it, they're just as much a culprit in ignoring the election results as anybody else.
I don't think that we should support regime change wars on the left. You know what I'm saying? So like, I get that she wants to take jabs at the Trump administration. I would very much prefer not to have a longer campaign in Venezuela where the end goal is regime change. I don't think it's any of our business. I think it's up to the Venezuelan people to pursue regime change should they want it. But the idea that no, the reason why the Trump administration messed up is all they did was kidnap Maduro, but the regime remains in place.
Yeah,
I don't care whether the regime is in place or not. It's none of our business. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Look, I have a slightly different take on that, but some criticism anyway. So first, on the equator line, I couldn't agree more with you. Who cares? Or like, is that important? That's not important, right? There's no strategic issue. It's just a minor slip up. So on this, I actually think that she was saying, look, even if they want a regime change, they didn't even do regime change. So they didn't even get their stated goal. So I'm gonna be a little bit easier on her than you are on that. Now, having said that, my problem with her in that line is she's constantly trying to please someone in Washington, right? So because in Washington, they talk about like, Republicans versus Democrats, and you attack the Republicans because they didn't do the regime change that they promised, and you have to say how bad Maduro is, and that's okay. Maduro is bad, right? But like as I'm watching her, I can see her like checking off things that establishment media cares about, right? Say Maduro's bad, otherwise you're not tough enough on foreign policy. Let's talk about regime change, just like she's framing it exactly how a Democrat is supposed to frame it in Washington.
Yeah, I think the best thing anyone in government or media can do is drown out all the noise. And when I say all the noise, I mean literally everyone. The left, the right, the middle, who cares? Sit down, study the issues, study the various foreign conflicts that are currently taking place, and ask yourself, what are your values? What would you want to pursue as a leader? Because look, she's gonna deny it, and she was in a panic after these appearances, so she hit up the New York Times, and we're gonna get to that in just a minute because she wanted to defend herself. But to me, it's very obvious that this was her debut as someone who like understands foreign policy because she's positioning herself to run for president. Like she denies it, but I don't buy it. Okay?
So we'll get to her denials. I don't buy it at all. It's not to say that she's definitely going to run, but she's testing herself on whether she should run or not through going through this type of process. And her rush to call the New York Times shows you her mindset, right? So, but the reason I wanted to come back to this issue for 1 second is, guys, like all the answers are so rehearsed. That's part of the problem, right?
They did not seem rehearsed to me.
No. And I don't mean like she had the Taiwan answer ready, because she most certainly didn't. I mean, they're studied and they're robotic and they're like, I can feel the consultants in her ear. Because here's how a person who's passionate about it would answer it. Here, I'll give you an example. So what do you think went wrong in Venezuela? Here's my answer is, why the hell were we in Venezuela? What interest do we have in Venezuela? Why are we wasting our money? And then now what are we gonna do? We're gonna rule Venezuela from abroad, from an aircraft carrier? Meanwhile, we got 2 aircraft carriers in Iran. And what happened to not starting wars? Utter disaster. We have no business in Venezuela, and we do not have the right to kidnap foreign leaders. So if you're a foreign leader here in Berlin, if our side is in charge, don't worry, we're not gonna weirdly kidnap you against international law. Donald Trump is a danger to the world because he doesn't listen to international law. So those are clear answers, and those are from the heart, instead of I have studied this and my consultant has told me to frame it just this way. And part of what she was doing with the Taiwan answer was trying to remember how she's supposed to frame it.
I don't know if I agree with you. We're gonna get to Taiwan in just a minute, but one final thing about this Venezuela portion of her appearance. Look, I do think that she seems to think that regime change would be good, because think about how she framed it. I mean, she framed it as, oh, Maduro canceled elections. All we did was kidnap Maduro. The regime remains in place. So Trump and Rubio are just as complicit in, supporting the anti-democratic moves that are being made in Venezuela. Like, that was the point, the framing that she was trying to use. And by the way, her argument is the whole reason why I went to these events in Europe is because I wanted to raise awareness about the very real problem of, anti-democratic parties popping up in European countries, anti-democracy movements in the United States. Like, that's her argument. So I think she was probably trying to frame this in this context of rising undemocratic, moves or actions by certain people.
Yeah, in fact, she kept calling it right-wing populism, which is actually counterproductive, if you ask me, because populism here in America is our ally. But she's framing it as left-wing, right-wing, because she's gonna run against Republicans.
Yes.
So they're the bad guys. I don't want their allyship, even if they agree with us on anti-war. Some of them do. We're not talking about Republican politicians. We're talking about populists, right? And they don't want to be controlled by Israel, et cetera. But she's like, I don't want your help, because I'm gonna run against you, and me. Why is she constantly mentioning Marco Rubio? Because she might run against Marco Rubio. So.
And she's about to try to take some jabs at Marco Rubio in the next clip. This one was bad, and I'll tell you why after we watch it. Take a look.
Marco Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
I thought they came from Winnetou, but
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word on that.
Okay, look, as much as it pains me to say it, Rubio was right, okay? So vaquero is a Spanish word, and horses and cattle were introduced to Mexico by the Spaniards, by the Spanish settlers. Look, I get the worldview of white people bad, but you gotta get out of that, and you have, please, you can't take the context of race issues from the United States and somehow apply it to foreign policy. And I just don't know why she did this.
No, I just gotta say, that was super cringe. As your dad would say about who's right between Rubio and AOC on this, the most irrelevant thing I've ever heard about where cowboys and
where have all the cowboys gone?
or where have they come from? As your dad would say, who cares?
Who cares?
And because she's trying to squeeze in her identity politics points.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
I know, and she's trying to squeeze in an anti-Rubio point.
Yes.
Just, what do you actually think? No, we lost her. This is not how humans react. And guys, I have every incentive to say she's amazing. Our audience raised $2.5 million so that her and the other Justice Democrats could win. We should all be super proud, et cetera, but this is not a populist. This is a person who studied these things and is trying to massage these talking points.
Yeah, and look, you're more obsessed with labels than I've ever been, okay? But right now, I'm especially allergic to labels, so I don't care if she's a populist or not. What I care about is, what are your foreign policy prescriptions? Are you someone who is imagining a world where the United States stops intervening and engaging in all these nonsense wars? And I'm sure that if I asked her that question, she would say yes. But it doesn't really seem like these are issues that she's thought about deeply, and that's a problem. And the reason why we're talking about this, guys, is because inevitably when she runs for president, as we get closer to election day, or as the primaries are taking place, people are gonna jump down my throat if I do any legitimate, constructive criticism of what she's up to. We've got 3 years, so don't come at me, all right? Now is the time to be critical, and if she's really gonna run for president, you gotta get your act together. All right, with that in mind, let's move on to the moment that stood out to me the most, and it had to do with Taiwan. So this was at the Munich Security Conference. She was part of a panel, and here's what happened.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is of course a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
So the US strategy when it comes to Taiwan is strategic ambiguity. I don't know if that's what she was reaching for there, but mission not accomplished.
Yeah, so people said that she stumbled for 20 seconds.
She did.
And before I watched it, I was like, it's probably an exaggeration. And then I timed it as I watched it. No, it was 20 seconds of okay, like Jesus Christ, what do you believe? Stop trying to remember things and just tell us what you believe. Look, Sagar and Jetty and Crystal Ball on Breaking Points had a good conversation when they played these same clips as we're playing, and then they were like, why aren't we talking about AOC for president? Why aren't we talking about Ro Khanna?
Dude, I saw that conversation. First of all, major props to Breaking Points, especially Crystal, because she's the lefty, of course, for keeping it real, right? Because you should keep it real. You should have high standards for your side, okay? You shouldn't have low standards. That's how you find yourself in a situation where your candidate loses.
No, but Sagar said the same thing. Credit to both of them.
Yeah.
Because and Sagar said, but the brother's actually leading. We have eyes and ears, right?
I know, yeah.
We can see him leading, and we can see everyone else not leading. And do you know that they leave Ro Khanna out of most of the presidential polls? Like the establishment media is unbearable. All right, keep going.
Okay, so now we're being very critical, of course, because we're being honest about how we think she did. Now, clearly, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not think she did well because she apparently called a reporter at the New York Times to try to explain herself. So Kellen Browning is the name of the reporter, and he posts on X, AOC came to Munich to warn about the far right. Coverage focused on 2028 and verbal missteps. She gave me a call. Okay, let's stop. You got a New York Times reporter on speed dial? What's going on here, girl? What's going on here, girl? Okay. Anyway,
no, that's normal.
Is it? That's normal?
No, it is. For a person of her stature in Congress.
Okay.
Oh, trust me, they got every reporter.
I'll be fair to her. I mean, it's in her interest to do this, right? Positive PR, that's what you'd want to do. But this is not a good look for the New York Times. So you get a call from your masters and then you immediately start doing your stenography work?
No, what's interesting is that,
like,
no. To me, the most interesting part of it is that if the New York Times is on your side, that means you ain't gonna do nothing, okay? The New York Times loves the status quo. That's why they're like, I don't know, maybe we'll leave him out of the polls or whatever, right? And they're like, AOC, oh, we're sure she's gonna do nothing. So that's what I'm worried about. Guys, I got burned on this a long time ago, back in 2008, supported Barack Obama 100% against Hillary Clinton in the primaries. And I was, the whole time like, why is the press being friendly to Obama? He seems like he's an outsider, he's a progressive, he's fighting for change. And like against the establishment Hillary Clinton, but they're being fair to him, and it was bewildering to me. And I would question it on air like, and it turns out the press knew something I didn't know. That Barack Obama was just as establishment as Hillary Clinton. So when she rushes to the New York Times and then the New York Times rushes to her defense, that's bad news.
That is bad news. So Browning writes that to Ocasio-Cortez, the discourse about her visit had missed the more important point about the risks of authoritarianism. Quote, everyone's got this story wrong. That this is about me running for president, I could give whatever about that, to be honest.
No one believes you.
No one believes you, sorry.
I mean, seriously, if I was in her position, would I think about running for president? Of course I would. You're one of the most prominent Democrats in the country. Would it cross your mind? Of course it would cross your mind.
Cenk.
So like, it's kind of fraudulent to be like, oh, president? Oh, I'd never even thought about it. Oh, I guess Oh, you're the first to suggest it to me.
I know.
Come on.
But to be fair, you'd wake up on a Tuesday and decide I'm gonna run for president.
That's probably true.
Okay.
And I don't want to do projection too much. And look, almost all of them think the same way. So that's no slight on AOC. There's good guys who also think about running for president.
Yes. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with thinking about running for president. I just hate this like stupid dog and pony show where it's like, no.
Like the way they pretend that they're not.
Like,
right.
Come on, we're not stupid. Okay.
But I want you to do that again.
Okay. Okay, here's more from her statement. She told The Times, the story is less about the opponents being some hypothetical primary. To me, my opponents are the network that links Orban, Trump, Milei, Bolsonaro, and all these folks. And then as far as the criticism she's received, Ocasio-Cortez argued that efforts to make clips of any 5 to 10 second thing from her remarks go viral online, especially in the conservative ecosystem, had been done to distract from the substance of what I am saying. I want to be very clear, no holds barred moving forward. The country is in a lot of trouble, and like this, I'm sorry, but this culture that we find ourselves in where the left protects the left, the right protects the right, and we just find ourselves in this endless cycle of mediocrity, it needs to end. I reject it. So no, this isn't about the conservative ecosystem. We're not conservative. And I'm telling you straight up, you need to study up on foreign policy if you're serious about running for president. And I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to say. And I'm sure she'll get very hurt by that, but this is for your own good, okay? Like seriously.
No, last two things. Guys, we have to pick the best candidate. Stop like with the and I think the great majority of Democratic voters finally have stopped with this attitude that we had to battle for 20 straight years. No, don't pick the best candidate. Pick the one that's anointed, because Democratic leadership knows so well, and CNN and New York Times knows so well.
Right.
No, they're full of crap, and the good news is, overwhelming majority of Democratic voters now know that they're full of crap. So let's vet our own candidates so we can pick the best one. Finally, the quote I promised you, the very end of the New York Times story, they say, I think she says, I think a lot about all the heartburn that the Democratic Party has sometimes had in these internal conversations. And the New York Times says, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez said, in both countries, she added, if the center left and those further on the left are unable to put their differences aside, then the whole thing goes out the window. Now, that might seem so inoffensive. Why do I care about that comment more than anything else we've covered? Because it misunderstands American politics. It's the center left, as she's calling it, which is the corporate Democrats, the establishment Democrats, are not part of the same group that we are. They're part of the uniparty. They are the guys who take money from big pharma and defense contractors, et cetera, and serve those guys. If you're trying to unite with them, you'll never get anything done. And so, we have to put our differences aside. Well, AOC, how are we gonna do that? We've been, like every time we go, okay, let's put differences aside, universal healthcare, the great majority of Democratic voters want it, 80-90% want it. They go, no, let's put our differences aside and not do universal healthcare or Medicare for all or paid family leave or minimum wage or any of the things you want. How are we gonna put them aside? No, she's misunderstanding politics. If you don't defeat money in politics, you won't get a single thing passed. And you're not going to be able to defeat money in politics by working with the guys who got there through money in politics and love money in politics, misunderstands all of politics. So it's very frustrating, and so I thought this entire performance, at the end of the day, although she had some good things, and I'm glad she's speaking out against authoritarianism, and I'm glad she went to go do that, but overall, not a good showing.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Israel and Eric Trump have made a deal, and it has to do with drones. Goody.
Okay, I'm gonna do a random plug. If AOC really was still on our side, she would have kept Shortcut Chakrabarty and Corbin Trent. Those were the two guys that were the most pivotal in Justice Democrats, most pivotal in getting her elected, her campaign manager, her communications director. She brought them to Congress and then fired them within 6 months because they were offending her colleagues. Well, if you're not offending the colleagues, what the F did you go there for, right? So that's when she gave up and became kind of more establishment and decided, oh, we're gonna play identity politics and we'll find a lane and an angle, etc. So it is what it is. The plug is for Shortcut. He's running in California 15, that's Nancy Pelosi's seat. And he already drove her out of the race. And now he's running against the most pro-Israel Democrat in the whole state. So make sure you check out Shortcut. So that's SAIKAT, okay? And support him. All right, Boomer Dragon Cat says, the funniest thing happened today. My husband still has a notable Cuban accent.
Hot. Sorry, my husband's Cuban too. So.
Yeah, she's not coming after you again.
No,
okay, don't worry. And some English words still come out funny. He was trying to tell me about Senator Greasy Ham, and I'm like, what? And he kept repeating Greasy Ham. He meant Lindsey Graham.
Oh my God,
okay, that cat, that's awesome. From now on, Lindsey Graham's nickname is obviously Greasy Ham, and that's perfect, okay? So I love it. Winston Smith says, you'd better start campaigning for your Nobel Peace Prize, Donnie, before the war starts. How many peace deals now, 15? Okay.
Are you kidding me? He'll probably get the Nobel Peace Prize after he starts the war.
I know. By the way, now we find out the Norwegians are like totally corrupted, worked with Epstein nonstop.
The Norwegians?
Yes, the Norwegians. In fact, I think the guy who's on the Nobel, you have to double check this.
I don't want to know.
On the Nobel Committee was linked with Epstein. So that's why like the Israeli-backed Venezuelan lady won the Nobel Peace Prize as she's in the middle of trying to start a war. Okay, like Epstein can't get a meeting with Putin. He goes to the Norwegians. Hey, do you have any contacts? So he had one or two guys that were clearly blackmailed to no end, and he was working with those guys. All right,
Norway.
Nerd Ferguson says that's why the Uniparty is so afraid of progressives. Every corporate PAC refusing progressive that gets into government is one more small slice that Israel doesn't and can't control. Oh, that's huge. That's totally true. You don't take corporate PAC money. That means you don't take foreign government money, etc. And oh my God, the Democratic Party hates that. Republicans hate it. All of Washington hates it. So, and that's how you know that.
Did Fetterman take corporate PAC money? I can't remember.
I believe he did. He was not a Justice Democrat. Yeah, and he famously avoided talking about Israel.
He did. You're right.
During the campaign. Furo Happy Warrior said AOC's cowboy joke landed like a Pokemon go to the polls. All right, we'll be back.
Everyone's like, oh my God, in and out, in and out. And I'm like, my controversial non-political opinion is that it's overrated.
All right, back on TYT, Jen and Anna with you guys, and look at all these beautiful new members. LS Spectator,
nailed
it. Yeah,
no, he totally nailed it.
Mondo La Straca and Champagne Comunista. All right, you're all welcome here on the Young Turks. We love diversity here. Hit the join button, diversity of thought and everything else. Slackjaw, Quick Draw, thank you for gifting membership, and Titan of Olympus, thank you for gifting 10. You guys are awesome, Anna.
All right, let's briefly discuss the latest financial winnings for the Trump family. So, according to the Wall Street Journal, President Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, has invested in an Israeli drone company known as Extend, and he did so before the company goes public. Now, the company is about to get literally millions of dollars from our government, which seems like there might be a conflict of interest here, Cenk, but I could be wrong. What are your 2 cents?
It's definitely a conflict of interest. So look, one of the questions is, are these guys gonna get prosecuted for all this corruption after the Trump administration is over? So you'll see some of it here. But if you notice, they're constantly making deals in the Middle East. And what does Trump spend all of his time on? Not the Midwest, but the Middle East. Gee, I wonder why. So Anna, give us the details.
So Extend is a private company based in Israel, and as I mentioned earlier, it is about to go public. Now, it creates all sorts of different kinds of drones. However, they also have some drones that they creepily advertise as low cost per kill. Fun. Those happen to be the drones that Israel is using to carry out its genocide in Gaza, by the way. Now, in September of 2023, the company's chief executive, Aviv Shapira, told the Wall Street Journal that what his drones can do. So Shapira's products helped Israeli forces map out terrain, explore inside buildings, and take out booby traps around Hamas's underground tunnel network. I remember watching a video of a doctor who was immediately killed in a drone strike as he was in the halls of the hospital he worked at. But I digress. Then you look at a video that Extend posted in July of last year, and you kind of get a better idea of how their drones operate, especially when it comes to their offensive capabilities. Take a look.
June 13th, 2025, Israeli intelligence executed the impossible, a stealth precision drone blitz that gutted Iran's air defense grid.
War has changed forever. Extend answers this new reality with two tactically deployed hives, one strike and one shield.
A mobile remote-controlled swarm, air, ground, even maritime. Extend has developed an AI-powered autonomous swarm that can be deployed anywhere and be controlled from anywhere. Our systems are COMS resilient as we can launch dozens of platforms in seconds.
From autonomous fleet management to patrol and area management, and also AI target catalog. We created the ultimate GPS-denied homing swarm strikes, available with interchangeable payloads, creating the ultimate strike force.
Well, terrorists sure do love their toys. Now, in November of last year, Extend revealed that they had won a contract with the Pentagon. So Extend said its one-way drone kits would be specifically built for small tactical teams in irregular warfare operations. And this month, the Pentagon stated that Extend will be part of its drone dominance program. That's an initiative with a budget of over $1 billion. So we should also note that Eric Trump isn't the only Trump who's getting in on this deal with Extend. So Unusual Machines is a drone company that's part of the deal to take Extend public. And who might be an investor and advisor at Unusual Machines? Oh, Don Jr. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Big Brother's here. I mean, that video was haunting. And so they could track you anywhere and kill you anywhere, and they brag about it. And if and this is an Israeli company, so if you dare criticize Israel at all, you know what they think you are, an anti-Semite, a Jew hater. And so don't worry, they got just the right drone for it though. And so Big Brother's here, and our president's kids are investing into Big Brother Incorporated. That is super scary and dangerous and terrible. Right?
And corrupt.
Yeah, and these guys pretend to be populist. Oh my God. So, all right, now they said that these drones, don't worry, they're reliable because they're battle tested in Gaza. First of all, battle tested for what? No, that means we have murdered so many civilians with this thing.
That's right. In an asymmetrical war where you have a military on the Israeli side that's backed by a military superpower, the United States. And like, what do the Palestinians have? Yeah, Hamas carried out atrocities on October 7th. They invaded with paragliders.
Yeah, I mean, they arrested one American kid because he saw someone else throw a stone, which is like prehistoric. That's what Gaza is at this point. Prehistoric rubble. And they're like so proud. They're like, this is what we murdered the defenseless Palestinians with. And don't worry, your president's kids are gonna get rich off of it, okay? And then we'll send them to more places, like we're trying to annex the West Bank now. And so we'll murder out more people with it, and the president and his family will make more money from it. And that way, by the way, they'll be incentivized to keep helping Israel with their wars, because every time Israel starts a war or continues the occupation, they have to use more drones, and the Trumps make more money.
Bingo.
Okay, and these drones are very dangerous. I hear that they fire bullets that get stuck in necks too.
Wait, what?
Nothing, that's all.
Okay, all right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, I want to share embarrassing videos featuring Michael Tracy. We'll be right back.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
What president is on the $100 bill?
Sorry, the question is moot. The last 4 years of the Reagan administration, very few people got to see a $100 bill.
All right, back on TYT, Cheng and Anna with you guys. And Eddie Jameson, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. We appreciate you. You guys can also join through tyt.com/join. That really helps the show a lot. Annual membership gets you 2 months off. And at the top of the next hour, we got a great guest for you guys. Carrie Prejean Boller She was on the Religious Liberty Commission until she insisted on her religious liberty, and then they kicked her off.
Literally.
Like that's actually, yeah, very literally what happened. They're like, no, this is against religious liberty. You all have to bow to Israel. It's amazing. So we're gonna interview her in a little bit. Anna, what's next?
Yes. All right, look, I don't even want to give too much away, okay? No tease for you. We're just gonna jump into it.
Must be being paid by someone in power who does not like these accusations that have been made against them. And I think it's fair to ask, are you being paid by any of the men who've been accused by Jeffrey Epstein?
Wow. Today's installment of the Piers Morgan show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, if you will, did go off the rails as Michael Tracy got into a bit of a spat with Tara Palmieri about the reality of the Epstein files, or at least what the Epstein files have revealed to the public. Now, for whatever reason, Michael Tracy does not believe that the revelations that we've all learned about and all read for ourselves exist. And so that's kind of at the heart of this spat that I'm gonna show you the highlights of in just a minute. But before I do, Cenk.
I mean, we got former TYT versus kind of current TYT. That's kind of interesting.
Do you stand by your former hiring decisions?
Well, so Michael's an interesting cat. As you're gonna see here, I have a different theory as to why Michael is saying absurd things. So first we'll show you the absurd things and I'll tell you why I think he's saying them. And then of course we'll get into who's right.
Now look, I do think that there's been a little bit of extrapolation or moral panic. So for instance, when you look at the Epstein files, some of those documents are FBI files where they're taking in calls where people are making accusations. And I see that a lot of people take those accusations as gospel, and you shouldn't do that, right? Because some people did call in and make insane allegations, and there's no evidence of those more outlandish allegations. So I want to just be clear about that because I do see people making that mistake. So just be careful with what you're reading, and don't assume that all of the allegations are 100% true.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, in a little bit, I'll give you order of credibility for what you're reading and how to determine it. And I'll say, look, Michael had this interesting moment here where he had trouble with his earpiece at a very inopportune time, but I actually believe him. So let's give you the videos.
Look at you. Okay, well, at the beginning of this episode, Morgan interviewed David Boies. And if you're unfamiliar with who that is, he's the person, the lawyer who represented Virginia Giuffre. And her case was against Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, used to be referred to as Prince Andrew, but he's been very bad, so he's had his title stripped from him. Now, Tracy has repeatedly accused Virginia Giuffre of fabricating her story. And more broadly, he doesn't think that Epstein was doing any sex trafficking at all. Now, if you think that's crazy, there's no way he believes that. Here he is, you should hear it from the horse's mouth.
You know what the files show us? That the government investigators who were on a warpath at this point against Epstein and then Maxwell discovered no credible evidence of any pedophilic sex trafficking or any sex trafficking at all to any third-party individuals, which was the crux of the mythology that Virginia Roberts Giuffre incubated, that Tara Palmieri amplified so lamentably credulously.
I'm gonna let you take that one, Cenk.
Yeah, that's absurd. There's a mountain of evidence. So look, some people are wondering, hey, is Michael Tracy running cover for Israel? That's not my experience with him. He's just a natural born contrarian. If you tell him the sky is blue and the grass is green, he will argue till the end of time that they are not. Right? So like this is the most obvious case in the world. There's video cameras in every room. They're in the tissue boxes. Gee, I wonder why they put video cameras. There's 1,200 victims. There's descriptions, there's emails of people going, I'll take a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old.
No trafficking, no pedophilia.
I mean, and Leon, there's Leon Black, according to the allegations, doing vicious rapes. Les Wexner called a co-conspirator by the FBI. There is a mountain of evidence, but no matter how much evidence you give Michael, that makes him want to oppose it even more.
It's crazy. I get the journalist's urge to maybe view things from a contrarian lens and be skeptical. Be skeptical of an official narrative, of conventional wisdom. That is a good thing. But once you read the documents for yourself, how do you still reach the conclusion that there was no human trafficking happening?
And he's so over the top sometimes. Like he said, they were going on a warpath against Epstein. What warpath? When they caught him in 2008, they gave him such a light sentence. The sentence was, well, if you don't mind, come and use the jail as a hotel. You're free to go during the day because we know you have important work, like raping our children.
No, but Cenk, have you considered that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't happy with the sweetheart deal? He thought that Dershowitz could have done better. Have you considered that?
Oh, okay, wait a minute. Okay, so a tiny amount of time, but only at night. And then Ghislaine Maxwell is in the minimum security prison having the time of her life, but they're on a warpath against poor Epstein and Maxwell. I mean, it's classic Michael Tracy, like absurd contrarian nonsense.
So after that, Piers Morgan asked Palmieri for comment. And remember, she's one of the top reporters that's been following this story, reporting on it meticulously, if you ask me. But look, Tracy wasn't having it, so here's the clip.
I don't know, Michael, have you ever actually listened to any of the tapes at the Palm Beach, the police in Palm Beach, the detective? Have you listened to any of the girls that they interviewed that were as young as 14?
I've listened to them all.
Yeah, and you think that they're not
listened
credible?
to it all, Tara.
You don't think that entire pyramid scheme in a high school?
Do you think Virginia Roberts-Giuffre is credible? She had nothing to do with that initial Palm Beach investigation. We're talking about your former journalistic collaborator who had to recant allegations against Dershowitz, had to recant her allegations against
let her speak, please.
Harvard professor Stephen Kosslyn, recanted against
Jean-Luc
Brunel. So you defend the credibility
let her speak or I'll cut your mic.
Of your journalistic collaborator. Go ahead.
Who do you work for, Michael?
Oh my God. Okay, I had listened to this episode. I hadn't watched the video of it. I gotta say, the look on everyone's face as he's talking is just like, John Kiriakou is the guy in the middle. He's a former CIA agent.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike Benz is the other guy.
Yeah.
And he just has this blank look on his face because the exchange is absurd. It's totally absurd.
John can't believe it. What is that? Who cares if she, all right, anyways, keep going.
All right, so when Tracy refers to Palmieri as Virginia Giuffre's journalistic collaborator, he's alluding to the fact that they once hosted a podcast together.
But but Tara reported, she's one of the top reporters on the Epstein files. So what did she do? She interviewed the victims.
Unacceptable, unacceptable. I don't do that.
Journalism 101, what did you want her to do? Not interview the victims? In this case, maybe the answer is yes.
So how did Michael Tracy respond to Tara Palmieri's question, right? Like, are you getting paid by any of Epstein's co-conspirators? Like, what's going on here? We should watch that moment because it was awkward and Cenk is gonna potentially defend Michael Tracy. So take a look.
Are you being paid by any of the men who've been accused by Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm having trouble hearing right now. I wish I could respond to whatever nonsense she just blurted out.
I'm asking you if you have ever been paid by any of the men who have been accused of crime.
But maybe somebody can
astonishing coincidence that you suddenly lost your hearing when you were asked a very difficult question. Tara asked if you're being paid by anybody to smear the victims of the Epstein
rather
scandal.
than defend the merits of her journalistic output, which she can't because it's indefensible, what does she do? She tries to impugn me personally, tries to imply or
you're not answering.
What's the answer to the question?
Of course I'm not being paid by anyone. I am paid by my readers on Substack, you idiot. You just can't engage on the merits, Tara. You are a disgrace. You are going to be remembered as somebody who was integral in fomenting this moral panic and mass hysteria that's led to mass defamation like you just tried against me.
Okay, there are rich and powerful men who have taken advantage of, and in some cases, preyed upon underage girls, some of whom, actually most of whom, came from disadvantaged backgrounds. And they were preyed upon specifically because they came from poor families or broken homes, and it would be harder for them to fight back. Throughout many decades, our government provided cover for those bad actors. That is a huge scandal. And the fact that, look, I think it's bad enough that we're living in a country right now that's just moving about the day, business as usual, nothing to see here. That's bad enough. But to have a so-called reporter add to it, and then on top of that, deny reality is beyond infuriating. Because aside from the victims not getting the justice that they deserve, this whole story says a lot about the society we live in. Okay, about our leadership, about the power players in this country and across the globe. And I would prefer to not live in a world where disgusting, pedophilic garbage gets to make decisions about the lives of all of us live.
Yeah, so Michael's acting like someone who's on the wrong side of this. And I don't mean like as an opinion, but as in like Alan Dershowitz and all the other people who cooperated with Epstein. But I don't think he is. So, man, maybe I'm wrong, but is he acting that way? Oh, clearly. I mean, I had battled with him on Twitter the other day, and he was like, name names. That's like what Dershowitz does. And then he just said mass defamation, just like Dershowitz does. Like he wants you to name a name so you can get sued or something. And I'm like, Michael, why are you being dense? Here's a name, Jeffrey Epstein. They didn't investigate him for decades. They gave him the lightest sentence possible. They let him go back. They knew he was committing all these crimes and abusing all these girls, and they didn't rearrest him until there was another story out over a decade later, et cetera. Ghislaine Maxwell, there's another name. And again, for decades, they left her alone. Even when they went after Epstein, they didn't go after Maxwell.
He even attacks Julie K. Brown, by the way. He attacks Julie K. Brown, that's the reporter.
Yeah, so that's the reporter who broke the story.
Who broke the story and led to Epstein getting arrested the second time.
So, I mean, if you fancy yourself a great reporter, as I think Michael does, then you should be celebrating Julie K. Brown. That was an amazing piece of journalism that led to the arrest of Epstein that the whole government didn't want to arrest in the first place. And with, again, overwhelming evidence. And you want more names, FBI names Les Wexner's co-conspirator. We've been through all of these, right? But Michael's the kind of guy that you can say 1,200 victims, you can name like all these different guys, and he'll say, so there's no evidence. You're like, I just listed the evidence. What is wrong with you? And I think part of the issue is, he's too thirsty to stand out from the crowd.
Pick a different story. Pick a different story. Pick a different story, okay? This ain't it.
No, but here's why this story is perfect for that. Because who would be crazy enough to defend Epstein? And Michael Tracy's like, I'll be your Huckleberry. Okay, so I don't think he's being paid. And the earpiece, no, he was playing around with it before. He was having trouble with it before.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on the earpiece.
And he did say, of course I'm not paid. And he's not.
I don't think he's paid.
No, I
don't think he's paid. I think he's wrong on this issue. And he looks even more clownish when he starts throwing out insults against journalists who have been following this story meticulously for many years. And look, the problem with citing in that moment, in that spontaneous moment, the problem with citing specific examples or evidence is that there's so much. So like, what do you remember? What do you remember to cite in that context? You get what I'm saying? But I mean, we've been covering specific emails. We've been covering the 16-year-old girl's diary, you know, the 16-year-old girl who had autism and Down syndrome and claimed that Leon Black had raped her, that one.
So how do you explain the government not investigating that allegation? That allegation is horrific.
So apparently there was an investigation into Leon Black. Charges were dropped though.
Yeah, and so tell me why they were dropped. I mean, maybe there's a good reason why they were dropped, but no one stated that reason. So since no one was either investigated or all charges were always dropped in this case, if you think that doesn't raise suspicion, you're not being honest. So this is Michael Tracy just doing the look at me daddy strategy here. So, okay, Michael, you win. We all looked at you, but I'm not sure that it was a win you thought you were getting.
Yeah, we definitely gave you the side eye. Anyway, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about something that Michael Tracy probably argues doesn't exist, Epstein's Zorro Ranch.
All right, so let's go to members on TYT.com. Spider-Man Dragon goes, oh, come on, Cenk. played with it. Are you for real? Yeah, he had a sound issue on that one question. So that's the type of thing I normally say. But all of the context clues. He was having trouble with his earpiece before. After he hears it, he goes, hell no, I'm not getting paid. Why wouldn't he just say that from the beginning? He talks over Tara in not a normal way that you talk over someone where you raise your voice. He had an even voice. And I know Michael, and that's not to exonerate him based on my character, support of him. No, he's the, if someone tried to pay Michael Tracy, he would love to turn them in. That's my guess, okay?
I don't need to believe that he was lying about the earpiece thing to think that he came across poorly in that whole exchange.
Oh, no question about that.
Yeah, he came across poorly.
Cabby says, so no way you read 3 million pages and know what's in the Epstein files. And Michael's insatiable. No matter, you can list 12 victims and 28 guys who did it, and he'd be like, oh yeah, but name some names. Okay, all right, so now we're playing games, right? Eclectic writes, and refusing to see the truth in the face of overwhelming evidence. Maybe Michael Tracy is trying desperately to land a gig at the mainstream media outlet. Again, I'd be surprised by that. He loves being the odd guy out. Well, mission accomplished. You are the odd guy out. Don Donna Dragon, interesting point. Never forget the drones over Jersey that they labeled as FAA testing and said nothing else about. Oof, good point. I had forgotten about that. And that was a weird mystery that they never explained. So, no, great. By
the way, we don't know what they were testing, right?
No,
for sure.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm sure it was totally innocent.
Yeah. Kofefe said, Michael Tracy, never trust anyone with 2 first names. Okay.
Agreed.
Wow, that's definitive. There you go.
Like Mark Wayne Mullen.
Oh yeah.
Mark Wayne, really?
Come on.
No offense to the Mark Waynes out there, but Wayne.
By the way, Michael would watch this and go, "There's nothing wrong with the first 2 names." No, Michael, it's a joke. All right. Anyway, little Mac McG writes in, I watched this earlier. This dude was one creepy as a pedo supporter who was way out of line attacking Tara and took far too long answering Tara's questions. So long it makes me think he was lying after he realized not answering the questions was admitting he was being paid. Wait, WTF, the pedo protector used to work at TYT. Look, brother, we've had a lot of folks who work here that don't agree with us now. And by the way, don't you think you know what Michael thinks? No, whatever you think he thinks the opposite, right? So he'll actually agree with us on, I don't know, 70% of stuff, because we are usually against conventional wisdom, and he has to be against conventional wisdom. All right, let's keep going. It's just Vegas writes in on Twitch. RIP Robert Duvall and Jesse Jackson. Rosie Turner also said RIP to Jesse Jackson, by the way,
yes,
and condolences to his family as a YouTube member. And I just want to double down on that. Jesse Jackson and I had a bunch of interactions. He was always terrific to me. And then he busted me on an interview that was hilarious. Ben and I were interviewing him, and we asked him some question about how he's trying to grab too much attention. And he's like, "Didn't you guys ask me for the interview?" And I was like, "That's a really good point." Jesse.
What president is on the $100 bill?
Sorry, the question is moot. The last 4 years of the Reagan administration, very few people got to see a $100 bill.
All right, back on TYT, Jen and Anna with you guys. More news.
We got to talk about Zorro Ranch.
He built his New Mexico ranch, he said, to be this Manhattan Project for basically kind of hacking the genome. Like, so he wanted to connect NSA hackers,
yes,
to biology. That's why I said in the last segment that this biotech research thing actually tracks. Like, this is the kind of thing that he was into.
Well, that was Ryan Grimm, friend of the show, discussing Epstein's Zorro Ranch. In fact, it was one of Jeffrey Epstein's properties, and this one happened to be located in the state of New Mexico. And while the federal government seems to have absolutely no interest in investigating some of the revelations we've learned from the newly released Epstein files, thankfully lawmakers in New Mexico do want to launch an investigation into Zorro Ranch in particular, and I'll explain why just a second. But before I do, Cenk, your 2 cents.
You know that old saying about they know where the bodies are buried? In this case, it might be literal, some haunting emails coming up for you guys. And how could this story lead to unraveling of the whole case? So we'll tell you about that here.
So Epstein owned this 8,000 acre ranch known as Zorro Ranch from 1993 until the day he died. And there are some pretty disturbing accounts of the goings-on at this ranch, although they're allegations and they should be investigated. Now, one of the Epstein survivors, Annie Farmer, has alleged that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein both assaulted her at this ranch when she was only 16 years old. Virginia Giuffre, along with another anonymous victim, reported similar stories, and then there's more. So the New Mexico Department of Justice wrote to the DOJ last week seeking unredacted access to an anonymous 2019 email that alleged 2 foreign girls were buried at Zorro Ranch. I read that email and it was creepy as hell, and I wondered, are we just gonna pretend like this doesn't exist? Is the federal government going to maybe at least pretend like they're gonna do an investigation? Nothing from the federal government, of course, but luckily on a state level, things are a little different here. So anonymous sources who spoke to the New York Times stated that Epstein repeatedly mentioned plans to inseminate women en masse at this ranch in order to spread his DNA. That could be totally made up. I have no idea. But right now, the New Mexico House of Representatives unanimously voted in favor of investigating this. Okay, they want to dig deeper into what's happening over at Zorro Ranch. Go ahead, Cenk.
There's another possibility for why he wanted that, not to necessarily disseminate his DNA. And this is crazy, guys, but look, we're in an absolutely crazy story. We told you about the 16-year-old whose baby was taken from her, according to the allegations. If they're interested in babies, this is how you would make babies. So, I mean, all of this is deeply disturbing, and before this story broke, we wouldn't have believed any of this stuff, but it's in the emails.
So again, there has been so much smoke when it comes to Zorro Ranch that the House in New Mexico voted unanimously to investigate this, and the legislation that they passed would create a special subcommittee to investigate allegations of criminal activity and public corruption. And it was, by the way, sponsored by 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. So this is very much a bipartisan effort, and I love to see that. This is where there shouldn't be any daylight between one party or the other, or between these 2 parties, because this is something we should all be interested in getting to the bottom of. And if there is any evidence of wrongdoing, at least we have a little more clarity about what happened at this ranch. Now, the property once known as Zorro Ranch is currently owned by Texas State Senator. His name is Don Huffines. And he has promised that he will cooperate with law enforcement as they investigate the property. So that's good news. I'm gonna skip his post, but you can read about it on X, where he said, I will cooperate, essentially. Now, all right, that's pretty much it about Zorro Ranch. So what I wanna know is, does Michael Tracy know about that email exchange? About how 2 foreign girls or 2 foreign bodies are buried at Zorro Ranch? I mean, it could be total BS, but how do you read that and think there's nothing there?
So, and a lot of times the government sees those emails and insanely does not investigate. And then Michael will then turn around and say, well, see, you didn't prove it. Yeah, but brother, that's because there's all this evidence and the government refuses to follow up on the evidence. That's part of the story, that's part of the problem here. Okay, so look, first of all, a lot of haunting stuff. It's 7,200 acres, so it's isolated kind of in the middle of the desert. Island isolated, you isolate the girls, so no one can help them, no one can hear them.
What girls?
And I know. And then, and also if something happens, it's easier to dispose of folks, right? So it's every part of this story is haunting. The unraveling, how could that come? Well, so look, our government's compromised. Obviously, the our intelligence agencies knew about Epstein for decades, and instead of turning him into the FBI, and that's another Michael Tracy thing. That's how my fight with him started online on X, where he's like, "What did you want the CIA to do? There's nothing they could do about it."
How about they disband since they're useless pricks and we don't need them? How about that? If you don't think the CIA could have done a damn thing when it comes to this case, then let's just get rid of them. What's the point of having CIA?
So in that case, like it's sophistry, right? No, what the CIA does, if there was a Russian gang, pedophile ring in America, would they be like, I guess there's nothing we can do about it? Oh, let him collect blackmail on American politicians and rape American girls. There's nothing we can do about it. No, you turn them into the FBI, and the FBI then arrests them. But the CIA in this case seem to be doing the opposite. The FBI finds these guys, and the CIA says, do not investigate them, right? And so that's according to Alex Acosta, who then became labor secretary for Trump, who gave the light sentence, and there's a lot of other evidence. But they could, so as much as our government, federal government is compromised, I don't think they bothered to buy the entire New Mexican legislature or the Rhode Island or Hawaiian legislature. It's too much, right? So there's no reason why the New Mexican legislators would be compromised. So they're going, oh yeah, his house is in New Mexico. Let's go investigate that. And they're going la 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 la. And if they go in there and they find a whole bunch of things that are incriminating, it's going to be a huge problem. In fact, that leads me to a prediction. I believe that if this keeps going down the road, which it looks like it's going to, at some point the federal government will step in and go, no, you know what? Good point about the Zorro Ranch. We're not taking over the investigation because we're going to do it more thoroughly. Trust us. Don't let them in. Don't let the locals in. Okay? Because our government is totally compromised.
But we also have to keep it real, because if this is nearly 8,000 acres. That's a lot. What are they gonna do? They're gonna dig up the whole property?
No, you could easily do. I don't know how they do that detection, but there's definitely ways to do it. Yeah.
All right. I mean, look, I'm happy that they want to do this investigation. I'm not trying to pour cold water on it.
Yeah, no, and they could find things inside the house. I mean, look at how sloppy they've been. Because I think that inside the government there was an assumption that these guys are above the law, so they barely even bothered to try to hide things. I mean, all these emails are all over the files. Give me a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, the missing baby, and all these different things, and they're just sitting there in the files. They didn't burn them, they didn't delete them. I think they thought we're above the law. Who's gonna make us be accountable? No one. So who knows? Maybe they left some of the tapes in New Mexico. See, that would be amazing. In fact, I'm afraid I shouldn't have said it out loud, because if anyone's watching, the FBI and CIA are gonna be like, rush to New Mexico. Make sure we clean that place up. Why did you protect them? Why are you still protecting them today? For any of the contrarians, and if you guys don't know, Michael Tracy's a contrarian saying, oh no, there's nothing to see here. Then guys, show me a single prosecution. Why hasn't the government prosecuted any of these monsters? Obviously, our government is in on it. That's why they protected them.
Yeah. All right, well, I want to just pivot to some other Epstein related news, this having to do with Thomas Pritzker. So, another one of Jeffrey Epstein's associates has now stepped down in disgrace. Thomas Pritzker is his name. He's the executive chairman, or at least used to be, of Hyatt Hotels, and he announced yesterday that he will in fact leave his post. He's the cousin of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Doesn't mean J.B. Pritzker is guilty of doing anything wrong, but unfortunately, this creep is part of his family. Now, Thomas Pritzker was friends with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell at least as early as 2003, if not before. Pritzker often stayed at Epstein's townhouse, and in one exchange that took place in 2010, 2 years after Epstein had pleaded guilty to soliciting a minor for sex, Jeffrey Epstein had written, "The girl from Romania that you met at my house is currently living in London. Can we see if there is a starting position in any of hotels?" Meaning, any of the hotels, Hyatt hotels that maybe she could work at. Tom Pritzker responded with, "Have her send me a resume. I can have her interviewed. No idea if they are hiring." I don't think there's anything wrong with that exchange. Doesn't indicate that there was any criminality taking place. So I want to be clear about that. Obviously, remaining friends with a guy after 2008, after he had pleaded guilty to soliciting a minor for sex, I wouldn't find myself in a situation like that. Tom Pritzker did, so make of that what you will. Now, also at an unknown date, Ghislaine Maxwell sent Pritzker this disturbing piece of writing. Let's take a look at this. It is the year 2032, and a father and son walk the streets of Lower Manhattan, approaching the site where the World Trade Center used to be in the end of the 20th century. The father sighs and comments, "To think that right here used to be the Twin Towers." The son, not understanding, asks his father, "What are the Twin Towers?" The father smiles and looks at the son and explains, "The Twin Towers were two huge buildings that used to be here until 2001, when the Arabs destroyed them." The son looks up to his father and asks, "And what are the Arabs?" Seems like Ghislaine Maxwell really reveled in the idea of a world without Arabs and seemed to focus her attention on 9/11 to fantasize about that.
Yeah, that was apparently 1 month after 9/11.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, one of the theories is that Israel did 9/11 to get us to attack their Arab neighbors and the people that they thought were their enemies. And Netanyahu has bragged about it's easy to manipulate America and get them to do what we want. And so I'm not saying that that theory is true, but for the folks who believe that theory, they look at this email and go, "Oh, so here's Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of legendary super spy Robert Maxwell for the Israelis, talking about, hey, look at that, the buildings went down, and now you're gonna have to attack our enemies and kill them all."
So I'm not commenting on that theory, but I am commenting on Robert Maxwell because I've been reading about him a lot more because I'm just curious about the guy. And it wasn't just that he was working for Mossad. He actually played a very pivotal role in the establishment of Israel as a state.
Yep.
So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact that legacy media, to my knowledge, has never even mentioned that Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is Robert Maxwell and that he was a super spy for Israel. I mean, come on, that's if her dad was a super spy for the KGB, do you think they would have never mentioned that? Or do you think they would have mentioned that about 2 million times already? So like these things are so weird. So I'm at a point where I don't know what to believe. But okay, put aside the theory about Israel or whatever, right? But look at what she's doing. There's this a month after 9/11, they are saying Tom Pritzker and Ghislaine Maxwell. By the way, this email was sent to several different people, all allies of Israel, and they're all laughing about ha ha ha. Now America's gonna kill all the Arabs.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's indisputable.
That is indisputable. It's in the emails. You can read it for yourselves. Anyway, I don't want to get caught up in that conversation because I will probably get assassinated. So let's just move on. So then there was this dinner where Ghislaine Maxwell claimed that 5 models would be working as the servers, and Tom Pritzker responded, "Actually, can't we have Mendelsohn, Blaine, Black, etc. as the servers and the 5 models as the guests? That would be far more fun." Anyway, all right, in 2011, Pritzker wrote to Epstein, "I am in a remote valley of Afghanistan, it's my birthday wish, with boys with toys, spent time with Petraeus yesterday and he loaned me a chopper, actually 2 with 1 as backup. Can't call till tomorrow." I don't know what boys with toys means. Maybe he's referring to the choppers. I have no idea.
It could be the weapons or it could be literal boys, we don't know. But given the chopper reference, probably more military.
Yeah, sounds like it. In 2011, Epstein told Pritzker, "Thanks, I really enjoyed last night. No, not the girl, our conversation. I have read more articles on you and your travails and fully understand your perceptions." And then finally in 2013, and these are the emails we know about, I'm sure there might be more. In 2013, Pritzker told Epstein, "Meant to compliment you on the performance art. As we left, I noted one of the girls perched and reading a red book on the couch under the stairs. Really excellent touch."
Yeah, okay, so not complicated, about the girls. But never investigated, everybody's free to go. And by the way, Ghislaine Maxwell not investigated. All right, now back to that.
She's in.
No, for two decades.
I hear what you're saying. Yes.
For 2 decades, they have all of these emails. This is a month after 9/11.
You're right.
The one we read. And they're like, oh yeah, you guys all think that 9/11 was funny, and now America will do what you guys want. Oh, but no, don't investigate. So, but guys, think about if the shoe was on the other foot. Imagine that the government had emails of all these powerful people saying, oh great, now America's gonna kill all the Jews. Do you think that would have been no big deal? No one would have investigated. No one would have looked into it. The media wouldn't care. But here they are going, now America's gonna kill all the Arabs. And everybody's like, what's the big deal? Like, I don't know that a single corporate media outlet has covered that email. I think it's a big deal that the most powerful people on earth were joking around about 9/11 and how it would lead to all the Arabs
off
like
the face
literally
of the earth.
holocausting, not genociding, holocausting the Arabs. And that they were so excited about that.
Yep.
If you had said that about Jewish people, everyone in that emails would have been what? I mean, right now, there would be the biggest investigation you have ever seen in your life. And if you're pretending that's not the case, you could pretend all day long. No one cares.
Yeah, we all know the truth.
All right, now one last thing. When people say you're not allowed to talk about theories and stuff, I'm not saying I agree with these theories, but we are allowed to talk about them. So there's this guys that it drives me crazy that they're called the dancing Israelis. I don't care what they're called. I don't care if they dance. I don't care about any of that. Okay, there's one thing. So those are the guys who went to look at the towers collapse, and people were, and they got caught, and it turns out they were Israeli spies. So, and then they go back to Israel. They get interviewed. I'm gonna come back to why they went back to Israel in a second, and that's the main reason I'm telling the story. Just a side note is they go back to Israel, they get interviewed on TV, and they say, why were you there? And they said, we were there to document the event. The host did not ask, how did you know there was going to be an event? Okay, now that's the side story. You do with that what you like. The main story is, not only did we arrest those 5 Israeli spies, we arrested dozens of Israeli spies after 9/11. And just like we got the bin Ladens, the bin Laden family was here in America, a lot of them. What's the first thing we did? Go get the bin Ladens, go get the Israeli spies, and then make sure that they go back to Saudi Arabia and Israel and they're safe. Who arrests spies and then lets them go? Isn't that incredibly strange? If we had caught Russian spies, dozens of Russian spies after 9/11 here, dozens of Chinese spies, who thinks we'd let them go? There is no circumstance under which we would let them go. We also let Robert Maxwell go. They said, it would cause an international incident and embarrass the Israelis. He stole our nuclear secrets and then shared them with the Soviet Union later to get more goodies for Israel. And that, but it would embarrass the beloved Israel. No, guys, there's something deeply wrong in our government. Deeply, deeply wrong. This government looks compromised in every way imaginable.
And I don't really understand, look, I don't understand the rage and anger toward anyone who's like maybe rethinking their worldview after the release of these files. And you really do get a sense of how much our government lies to us. I mean, I knew our government lied to us, okay? I already was in a place of I don't trust our government. However, it turns out that the distrust should have run a lot deeper.
Yeah, no, I'll say one last thing because I hear you say that. So about 9/11, so I used to believe in the official story until about like literally a couple of days ago. And now I'm saying, I don't know. I don't claim to know a theory and I'm positive and I know that, how steel melts at what temperature. I'm not into any of that, right? Although World Trade Center 7, I've now seen it. Controlled demolition, unquestionable. I've seen 1,000 controlled demolitions. It's a controlled demolition. Okay, so that one I'm clear on, nothing else I know. All I know is I don't trust the government anymore. I think the government is entirely full of crap. And all the redactions in the 9/11 Commission and in these emails, Ghislaine Maxwell is asked to join a shadow 9/11 Commission.
Yeah.
And people say, no, that's no big deal. That happens all the time. Does it? Does it happen all the time?
That is a big freaking deal. Okay, no one's gonna convince me that's not a big deal. The woman fantasizing about a Holocaust of Arabs is included in the shadow 9/11 commission. Get the F out of here, please.
Okay, so then a whole bunch of like mainstream media reporters and other people were like started tut-tutting me online, like, look at these conspiracy theorists. All the sophisticated people know that the government tells the truth all the time. I'm like, you're a reporter? You're a reporter, and you're like, well, the government said it must be true. You're embarrassing. So I'm gonna go further here. If you believe the government wouldn't lie to you about 9/11, you're an idiot. You have no ability to gather evidence and keep an open mind and reevaluate. Okay, so I thought the government was not lying. Now, after we see the Epstein files and the government's been lying about that for decades, if you're still a moron who thinks, oh no, the US government would never lie, everyone who says that they're lying are conspiracy theorists and they should be canceled forever and never should they be allowed to talk against the beloved government and the powerful, you're not a reporter. You're a marketing executive for the powerful, you just don't know it.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we will read your comments. Stick around.
I am paid by my readers on Substack, you idiot.
Weenie.
All right, back on TYT. Drunken Monkey writes in on Twitch, hashtag BezosBucks. So guys, if you have Amazon Prime membership on Twitch, is free to you, but we get the money. So it's a great way to help out, doesn't take long. TYT.com/prime, takes about 30 seconds. So that's BezosBucks. Also, ring the bell, and especially these days, given how the algorithm is, if you like what we're saying, please like and share the videos. The live videos, the VODs, the videos that clips that you see on YouTube. So thank you for helping in every way. Microgram says about Michael Tracy, I feel so old. I remember when he was still on TYT. Well, here. Little Taco Dragon says, what's up, TYT? Much love. It's my birthday today. Can I get a birthday shout out? Of course. Well, there it is. Of course. Happy birthday. Is that Little Taco Dragon? Il Taco Dragon? Anyway, Sid Life 365 says, Ramadan Mubarak, all Muslims. Tomorrow's our day in the West. Let's go. I'm returning to Allah completely. Okay, Mubarak. Snow Wolf VOOV says, I'm a little behind right now. Just did a for real spit take at Jenk's Fruity Pebbles comment. Jenk, we love you. That was hilarious. Dare I say iconic. Thank you for finding the levity in these dark times, TYT. Well, that's a beautiful thing for you to say. Thank you, appreciate it. Kevin Shea says authenticity is tough to find anymore, referring to AOC. D. Mitchell says if this AOC's first attempt to actually get her ducks in a row, she should not be running for anything. We need a real fighter. Faye Scott Smith says, hey Anna, Jenk. Hey Jenk, I love the way you call out both sides, especially when they mess up. This is why I watch you almost every night. Thank you for your service. You are true Americans. Thank you for saying that, Faye, you're awesome. Miss Matt says, I'm new to these guys, but I can't get enough of them. Anna's amazing, okay? She missed that one, she went out for a second.
No, tell me.
No, nothing. All right, fine. MS Matt said, I'm new to these guys, but I can't get enough of them. Anna's amazing.
I am pretty amazing.
Oh, please. Okay, so you missed a couple of other ones and I'm not repeating them. Okay. Dana Albrecht said, I love Tara Palmieri. She does not back down or suffer fools. That is definitely true. Yeah, we got nothing but love for Tara Palmieri here. Absolutely. Dapper Dan writes in on Super Chat. I voted for Trump 3 times, so you can believe me when I say after a year of this administration, I would gleefully vote to impeach the whole lot.
Wow.
Damn, there you go. By the way, I get that 10 times a day, okay, on social media, etc. Why? Because, anyway, we're all human beings. We're all in this together. They're trying to get us to hate each other. Stop. Once you stop hating them and you actually talk to them like human beings, turns out they are human.
100%,
and
yeah.
They actually have the same concerns. Prices are too high, wages are too low. It's no more wars.
Save the heat for the elite.
Yeah, oh, that's a good one. I like that. Just do a bumper sticker on that. Michael Cotavelli says, I think AOC should run for Senate and take a foreign policy committee so she could broaden her positions on global affairs before she considers a run for the presidency. That seems prudent. All right, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Jake, Anna, and reality and common sense. That's actually a handle that just joined. Hit the join button, Anna, go.
You got to save your 2 cents. This is a rapid fire. So, Stephen Colbert was supposed to air an interview with a politician. In fact, a Democratic candidate by the name of James Tallarico. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard of him. He wasn't able to air that interview on his television show. He had to do so on YouTube instead. He explained, you know who is not one of my guests tonight? That's Texas State Representative James Tallarico. He was supposed to be here, but we were told in no uncertain terms by our network's lawyers who called us directly that we could not have him on the broadcast. Then I was told in some uncertain terms that not only could I not have him on, I could not mention me not having him on. And because my network clearly does not want us to talk about this, let's talk about this. I love that he did that, okay? So he's on CBS. We all know what has happened to CBS in recent months under the leadership of Barry Weiss, of course. But honestly, I think this issue has more to do with the FCC weaponizing a new guidance from Trump against their political opponents. So what do I mean by that? Well, the CBS lawyers were reportedly concerned about the new guidance from Brendan Carr, who is the chair of the FCC under the Trump administration. So he says that late night shows may have to abide by what's known as the equal time rule. Now, long time ago, we had something known as the Fairness Doctrine. And the Fairness Doctrine stipulated that in order to get broadcast licenses, you have to agree to give both sides or all sides equal time on your broadcast. Now, I thought that was a good rule. Trump brought it back to some extent, although he brought back this Frankenstein version of it so he can use it and weaponize it against political opponents. And that appears to be the case here. So the rule says that radio and television broadcast stations that interview a candidate in an election year also have to allow for that candidate's opponent to have equal time. Again, overall, I'm okay with that rule. It just needs to be applied equally. And that doesn't seem to be the case here. So there are exceptions to the rule, and news programs and talk shows like Colbert's have traditionally been considered exempt from it. Brendan Carr is pushing to change that. In January, he wrote a letter where he suggested the exemption should no longer apply to programs he characterized as being motivated by partisan purposes, which is an interesting thing to say because he did exempt a certain type of broadcasting from this rule, and that certain type of broadcasting happens to be talk radio, which also happens to be pretty conservative.
Not pretty conservative, unilaterally conservative.
Very conservative, yeah.
Almost no left wingers on conservative talk radio, but I'm sure it was a coincidence.
So Colbert called Brendan Carr a smug bowling pin and said to him directly, FCC You, because I think you are motivated by partisan purposes yourself. Now again, that guidance I'd have no problem with if it were applied equally and it wasn't weaponized for political purposes, but it does appear that that's what happened here.
Yeah, so yeah, there are two different issues there. The Fairness Doctrine, I actually don't agree with Anna. I always hated it. And the reason for that is because it actually prevents you from bringing almost anyone on. Because they're like, oh, that race has, technically it has 13 people in it. So you have to interview all 13 people, otherwise you're not allowed to interview anyone. So, and I can go on and on. I get that a lot of the left likes that, but that law has 1,000 unintended consequences, okay? But we're not talking about that here because here, he's like, this is the unfairness doctrine. So conservatives get to talk, but if we think you're on the left, we're all of a sudden gonna bring back this zombie law and only apply it to you guys.
Besides which, isn't the Colbert Show he's a comedian, isn't it supposed to be? I know that he talks about politics, but through the lens of a comedian.
Yeah, I mean, he says talk shows, but then you can interpret that as political talk shows like us, right? Or news talk shows like us. Or you could interpret it more broadly, and they're interpreting it more broadly. Why? Because they hate Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, and they want them to shut up. And and they're pretending that they want to give a voice to others, which is deeply ironic, because they're trying to actually just get them to stop talking.
Now, luckily, the interview is available on the YouTube version of his show, so you can check that out on YouTube, which further bolsters the argument that there are huge benefits to digital media. It's not regulated by the FCC the way broadcast television is. So there you have it.
Yeah, the person who got screwed most by this is Jasmine Crockett. And why is that? Because Tallarico is running against Crockett in the primary, which is starting now in Texas. And this is the greatest political ad of all time for Tallarico.
100%.
Because the entire country's talking about it. If they'd just done a normal interview, I gotta be honest, probably no one would have noticed, okay? But because of this is a spectacular political ad for him. So, and Crockett's gotta be thinking, why wasn't it me that got banned? Why wasn't it me? Kind of like how everybody on the left was singing that when Don Lemon got arrested. Okay, keeping it real here. This is 2002. All right, guys, we're gonna take a break here. When we come back, the show continues today, actually. So we've got an amazing guest for you guys, Carrie Prejean Boller. She was on the Religious Liberty Commission until they kicked her off for having religious liberty. You can't make this stuff up. So that interview when we return. to the Young Turks. Cenk and Anna with you guys. Now we got a really interesting guest for you.
We sure do. Why don't you first take a look at this?
As you know, I'm a Catholic, and Catholics do not embrace Zionism, just so you know. So are all Catholics anti-Semites, according to you?
As I said, anti-Zionism, by denying the right of the Jews to have their own state while not saying the same for any other peoples, that is a double standard, hypocrisy, and anti-Semitism.
So just to be clear, are Catholics anti-Semites because they don't?
Carrie, excuse me. I'm going to interrupt.
Well, there has been quite a bit of controversy surrounding the first Religious Liberty Commission panel discussion on anti-Semitism. The fiery woman that you just watched in that video is Carrie Preene, who has since been fired from this panel entirely. Who fired her? Well, the chair of the commission, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. And if you have questions about this story, don't worry, because luckily we have Carrie with us today, and I've got a lot to ask her. Carrie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
First, let me just say, I give you a lot of credit for being willing to speak out the way that you spoke out during that discussion. It does seem like, when it comes to the topic of religious liberty, one particular religion seems to enjoy that liberty more than others, and that was perfectly illustrated in the exchanges that you had. But I want to start off by kind of getting a better understanding of how you got involved in this commission in the first place.
That's a great question. So I've known the president for almost 20 years now. I was Miss California, went to Miss USA. I'm sure everybody remembers the famous question that I received. Do I believe in gay marriage? No, I don't. Went on to be, one of the conservative darlings on the right. And so the president and I remained friends over the years. I supported him relentlessly. And so now, fast forward, that was 2009, fast forward to 2024. And, he wins the election. And then I get a call from the White House one day saying, hey, Carrie, we see that you're a new Catholic and we would love for you to serve on the Religious Liberty Commission. The president has appointed you. So this was a appointment by the president, and only the president has the power to remove me.
So, Carrie, there's a controversy as to whether you're actually fired or not, because Dan Patrick says, you dare to have religious liberty, so obviously you can't be on the Religious Liberty Commission. And doesn't note the irony. And you
can't make this up.
Yeah, totally. And we'll get into all the details in a second, but you say that he does not have the power to remove you from the commission. So where do we stand now?
Yeah, so according to the executive order, I think they thought I was just this dumb blonde bimbo, out in California that was a pageant girl that wasn't catechized well in my Catholic faith, recent convert. Oh, she'll just shut up and obey, and she'll just go along with it to, be close to the president and have access. But you know what? My faith and my integrity means more to me than having access to the White House and fancy dinners. So yeah, he doesn't have any authority. Dan Patrick is an equal to mine on this commission. He is a commissioner just as I am. And under the executive order, I've done a little bit of research and spoken to several attorneys. Dan Patrick is overstepping his authority. He has zero authority to remove me, just like I have zero authority to remove him. So I'd appreciate, Dan, I know you probably have aspirations to running for president, but you're not the president. So we'll see what the president does about this, but I don't think he appreciates you overstepping your authority, Dan. You're an equal to mine.
Carrie, I gotta say, I'm a little bit astounded by your faith in Donald Trump. Okay, you've known him for multiple decades, so obviously you know him on a personal level way better than I ever will. But at the same time, he hasn't stepped up to defend you at all. And in fact, his actions in his second term show me that he is willing to carry water for Zionists over pretty much anyone else. But maybe I'm misreading it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I'm very frustrated. I'm very disappointed that he hasn't come forward yet. I have been told that he is getting tremendous pressure from Zionists, Christian Zionists in particular. Let me just tell everybody, it's not the Jews, it's not the Muslims who are attacking me, it's Christian Zionists. Those are the ones who are attacking me. They're mad that I converted to Catholicism, and they're mad that I dared to speak out against Israel, because that's their religion. You can't speak out against Israel. And I am here, I ripped the Band-Aid off, I exposed the elephant in the room. It needed to be done. And it took a 38-year-old mom out of California to do it. So shame on everybody that was on that stage that day that the president appointed to uphold religious freedom. And they decided to keep their mouths shut to protect their businesses, protect their corporations, and to protect their access to the president. So I'm hopeful. It's not over yet. I'm hopeful that the president does the right thing. I know he's getting a lot of heat right now from the Catholics. So we'll see what happens.
You know, I caught your interview with Ryan Grimm today. It was a great conversation, and something that caught my attention was what you had to say about the pressure campaign to get you to resign even before that panel discussion took place. Can you elaborate on that a little for our audience?
Yes, so it's quite sad, actually. I didn't come forward with this before because I really do believe in religious freedom, and I was honored to be on this commission, and I wanted to do my job, and my job was to protect religious freedom for all, even the religions that I don't hold firm to. So that's really what I was committed to. Well, back up to August, I was starting to speak out about Gaza. I couldn't deny my eyes. I couldn't deny the fact that there were innocent children starving and innocent families slaughtered and bombed, and just the tremendous amount of suffering that I witnessed with my own two eyes. So I started posting, I started talking about it, and I started, posting about what Pope Leo was saying about, the genocide in Gaza. I know he didn't use those words, but I'm using those words because it is a genocide, in fact, a Holocaust. And so I was posting about it, and I was just spreading awareness. Well, I got a call from the White House one day, and it was from the designated federal officer who serves at the White House. And she told me that some people in the White House were concerned about my posts about Gaza and Israel, and that I needed to stop posting about Zionism, and that I'm not allowed to be an anti-Zionist to be on this commission.
Wow.
Well, fast forward, I told the lady I'm not resigning. There's no reason to resign. And then I see the president at the next hearing, and he came up to me and we had an exchange, and he said, I know you, Carrie, and I know the real you, and you're staying on this commission, obviously. So he had my back then, and so I'm hopeful that he'll have my back now and not gonna cave under Zionist supremacist pressure. But yeah, there was a witch hunt against me, Anna, and it's unfortunate because all I was doing was standing up for life. I'm pro-life, and I have every right to stand up for the innocent lives that were being taken in Gaza. And I wasn't gonna deny my eyes. And then fast forward from there, Dan Patrick and Paula White called me shortly thereafter, around end of August, early September. And they said, Carrie, you really gotta stop posting on social media. Your job here on this commission is protect the president.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not to protect religious freedom.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I've got a million questions, but I want to, first of all, by the way, I want to say before the questions that about a year and a half ago, as the genocide was, already in horrific shape, I started asking, where are the pro-life folks? What happened to all the talk about protecting kids and babies, and not only 20,000 kids, but 1,000 kids under the age of 1, hence babies, right? And something startling happened. The pro-life people showed up. You guys did, and it was beautiful to see. Because there's so much hypocrisy in politics, and so for folks like you and Tom Massey and others to come and go, yeah, this is not the pro-life position. This is the exact opposite of the pro-life position. Just for you to stick to your principles, I love that. So and by the way, in America, we're supposed to have freedom to, and so I'm pro-choice, you're pro-life, but at least you're consistent on it, at least you're principled on it, and we agree on saving life in this particular case. Okay, now the logistical questions, because it's important. So when they picked you for the commission, did they tell you in any kind of detail what the commission's mission was supposed to be, or they just said religious liberty, so obviously religious liberty, or was there some instructions involved?
That's a really good question. So they gave us, kind of a rundown of what this commission is supposed to do. So we were supposed to have hearings once a month in Washington, D.C. We're supposed to hear from everyday average Americans like myself who are facing religious persecution and silence for their religious beliefs, which is so ironic. So we've had these hearings since August, and our job as commissioners is to really talk to everyday average Americans. And we're supposed to take notes, we're supposed to write a report, and then in May, at the end of our term, we're supposed to sit down with President Trump and advise him on what he can do to ensure religious freedom for all Americans, for all religions in this country. He cares. I thought he cared about religious freedom. And so I'm really disappointed in him so far that he hasn't come out in defense of Catholics who 56% of them voted for him in 2024, but yet the only Catholic female on this commission who dared have the guts to speak out for her faith is now being removed. What about you caring about religious freedom, Mr. President?
Right.
So, okay.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, for sure. So let's keep going. So when you guys had the different meetings, did people come and say, hey, I'm worried about being persecuted as a Muslim, as an evangelical, as a Christian, as a Jew, as a Buddhist, etc.? Or because in that particular one that we all saw because of the controversy, it was just about
anti-Semitism specifically.
Yes, so there's different topics. So like there's religious liberty in education, there's religious liberty in healthcare, there's religious liberty in the military, there's religious liberty in dealing with anti-Semitism. And I guess they wanted to talk about Israel over 17 times. I'm like, is this a Israel commission? Is this a Zionist commission? What's going on here? This is so fake. This is so pretend that you care about religious liberty when it comes to Jewish Americans. Why didn't we hear from a child who was told that they can't wear the little, yarmulke or whatever it's called? Why weren't we told that some student on a college campus, was told that they can't pray or a Muslim or whatever? Like, why are we hearing about Israel over and over and over again? It's nauseating. It's getting so old. And I knew at this hearing, because they tried to do an intervention and all the backstory with them trying to fire me back in August, I knew that this was going to be a pivotal moment, a turning point for our country. And I had to speak up, especially for my Catholic faith, because what they said on that stage is that if you're not a Zionist, you're an anti-Semite, you're a hateful bigot. That was the statement that they made. And I will tell you, I reject that. That is hatred towards Catholicism. And I, as a Catholic, am deeply offended, and so many Catholics are. We are the furthest thing from filled with hate. We are the furthest thing from being bigots. All we want is to stand up for our religious freedom and reject Zionist supremacy, because we as Catholics, we don't believe that Israel today has anything to do with Israel of the Bible, okay? Christianity has been hijacked by evangelical Christian Zionists, and it's time we take Christianity back. They don't speak for me. I don't wave the Israeli flag, okay? I stand for freedom, and I stand for my religious freedom in this country to say whatever I want.
Yeah, what I thought was really, really important to kind of focus on from the whole controversy is the fact that you kept trying to make the point that Zionism is not the same as Judaism, right?
Yes.
Discriminating against people for being Jewish or for having, Judaism as their faith. Yeah, that is wrong. But Zionism,
I reject that.
Yeah, Zionism is a political ideology. That's what it is. It's a political ideology.
No, they don't want you to believe that. They don't want you to believe that. They want you to equate Zionism, a political ideology, racist political ideology. Okay, I've done a lot of research since then. And I have learned so much about how the founding of Israel was created, the 700,000 innocent Palestinians that had to be displaced, many of them slaughtered, their houses were overtaken. No, I reject the fact that they think that they can just commit a genocide because they're God's chosen people. No, the Catholic Church actually teaches that the church is the new Israel, okay? So if you're catechized well, that's what you know, and that's what you should be saying.
Yeah, so along those lines, I mean, because there's rabbis who are against Zionism because they say it's nationalism and that will corrupt our religion. It'll corrupt Judaism. And so they're against it. In fact, you asked about that, Carrie, and you asked if a rabbi who was against Zionism, and you quoted the rabbi, was anti-Semitic, and they said yes. That's absurd. That's so absurd,
insane. Yeah,
right?
It's crazy.
So I
Everybody's
love that
an
question.
anti-Semite. I guess everyone's an anti-Semite now. If we're all anti-Semites, even a Jewish rabbi is an anti. This is absurd. I reject it. It's insanity. Okay.
So what absolutely. What I was gonna say is, since it's nationalism, it's like saying, hey, we're doing a religious liberty commission and none of you are allowed to disagree with Turkish nationalism. You'd be like, wait, what? why do I have to care about Turkish nationalism? And why was that related to religious liberty? But when it comes to Israel, they're like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense. And so has Dan Patrick ever explained, like, or addressed the fact that he's taking away your religious liberty while heading the Religious Liberty Commission?
He is so reckless, and I think that he thought he was so tough by going online and saying, this is my choice, I'm removing her. Cool, Dan, you're not a tough guy. You look like a big loser right now, Dan. Catholics are furious with you. Christians are furious with you. People of all faiths are furious with you. Because if you deny, yeah, go ahead.
No, besides which, I mean, I don't really understand how Christian Zionists reconcile their so-called pro-life stance while fully standing by Israel as they mass slaughter children in Gaza and further victimize, by the way, people in Lebanon, Syria, the West Bank. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. But when you talk about how you value human life, I'm so curious what your thoughts were after you had this exchange with my personal favorite, Shabbos Kestenbaum. And I'm being sarcastic, but nonetheless, this exchange, for whatever reason, no, I know exactly why, really got under my skin. So we're gonna play it for the audience, and then I wanna get your thoughts. What was going through your mind as he was saying this? Let's watch, and then I'll get your thoughts.
Since we've mentioned Israel a total of 17 times, are you willing to condemn what Israel has done in Gaza?
No, because I unilaterally reject that it's not a genocide. The only genocide ever carried out was on October 7th when Hamas tried killing every man, woman, and child they could possibly find.
Hang on, let me respond. 70,000 innocent civilians killed?
Let me respond. So first of all,
you won't condemn that?
And Carrie,
just on the record.
He's already, excuse me, as chair of the committee.
I think it's important we have this discussion.
I agree, I'm happy to answer.
And Carrie,
I think we'd be great friends.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer.
Carrie, we have had the discussion. Good questions, good answers. This is a commission on religious liberty. If there's another commission on this issue.
I don't know why we're talking about a foreign country.
You didn't even frame the question with the word genocide. You just asked him to comment on whether or not he was okay with what Israel carried out in Gaza. And as we all know, Gaza has been totally flattened. Okay, tens of thousands of innocent people slaughtered. Number is very likely higher than that. They're not allowing international journalists into the Gaza Strip so they can do reporting on the ground. We just have to take Israel's word for it when it comes to information on what's happening there. What was going through your mind as you heard Shabbos argue that what happened on October 7th was a genocide, but what Israel has carried out in Gaza is not?
Yeah, I was really trying to just stay calm and stay on the facts, and I was wanting my questions answered. That's why I asked a lot of questions, and all I said was, there's over 70,000 innocent Palestinians that have been slaughtered. What do you have to say about that? And he's like, no, it's not a genocide. It's not a genocide. Okay, so you think that October 7th was a genocide, but killing 70,000 innocent Palestinians wasn't a genocide? It doesn't make any sense. And his argument, I mean, you could see how nervous he was. I mean, I feel so bad. He was talking so fast, he couldn't even, and then he was telling the guy next to him to be quiet, and then Dan had to interject. It was just a circus. It was completely chaotic. And shame on the chairman for interrupting, because I do think that these questions were very important and answering them. I mean, if this topic is on anti-Semitism, I wanted to define what is anti-Semitism. And I brought up the IHRA definition, which is deeply concerning as a Christian, that certain parts of the Bible are considered anti-Semitic speech. And I read the verses in the Bible that says the Jews killed Jesus. So if someone says that, what are you gonna do? Arrest them? Put them in jail? I mean, where does this lead to, you guys? This is very dangerous. This is serious.
Yeah, so look, for me, I got no dog in the fight about who killed Jesus, right? But I do have a dog in the fight about American rights, First Amendment rights, free speech rights, religious liberty rights.
Yeah.
So, so in the case of October 7th that Shabbos mentioned, as you're pointing out, basically Israel did 70 October 7ths, but they said that doesn't count. Okay, again, all right, that's a difference of opinion. No big deal in America, everybody gets to say their opinions. But you made a great point. Wait, we're talking about religious liberty, but you guys introduced the topic of Israel. Not Carrie didn't, they did, right? And they introduced this 17 different times. And the point was our religious liberty, in their case, they're claiming to speak for Jewish Americans, right? They're saying our religious liberty means that you cannot have your religious liberty.
Exactly.
You cannot say anything against Israel because as the guys you were questioning, I think they were rabbis, but I'm not sure, were saying, yeah, you are not allowed to demonize Israel. That's considered anti-Semitic, so you will be made to shut up if you do that. If you have a double standard, but what's a double standard? They think everything's a double standard.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're against Zionism, but you're not against other ethno-states. That's not true. I'm against all ethno-states. How do you know what's in my head? But shut up, shut up, shut up was the
shut up
was the theme. So then that made me question, wait, what's the point of this commission? Going full circle. Are they going to like write a report saying that Americans should shut up and should never criticize Israel because that means you're taking away religious liberty from Jewish people or some ludicrous thing like this? Was this all a front just to be able to tell Americans, shut up about your religions, only
you have to defend Israel. You have to defend Israel and be in support of Israel. Otherwise, you're an anti-Semite. It seems like that was the only takeaway from the first panel discussion. And that's insane. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And prior to even me getting on this commission, I had been posting about Israel and Gaza before I even was hired. So, I mean, none of my statements have changed. I've always been pro-life. I've always, spoken out about what was happening since October 7th. And what I don't understand is you can say what happened on October 7th to innocent civilians is wrong. And you can also say that killing over 70,000 innocent Palestinians, starving them to death and destroying the entire, Palestinian land there is a genocide and it's wrong. And if you can't say the two, something's really wrong with you. And my point is that the other side, I requested 4 Jewish Americans to speak at this hearing. I requested 2 Palestinian Christian groups to speak at this hearing on anti-Semitism. Who better than Norm Finkelstein? I suggested him. He was denied. Oh, Dan Patrick didn't want him anywhere near this commission. He's the wrong type of Jewish American. He's not a Zionist Jew. That's the problem. So Miko Palad, he's a pro-Palestinian. He was denied. Rabbi Shapiro, he was denied. Oh, you want to label me an anti-Semite? No, you guys are anti-Semites because you don't want the full story. You just want the Zionists. That's all you want, Zionist supremacists.
And that is, again, it's not about religion, it's about nationality. So they're saying, I don't care if you're a Jewish American, a Catholic American, or whatever you are not allowed to speak out against Israel. That takes away the religious beliefs of the rabbis that you mentioned, let alone everyone else. So again, I come back to what is the point of this commission?
It's a fraud. It's a fraud. It should be shut down. Every American should be calling for this religious liberty to be completely shut down. Because I was actually looking forward to meeting with the president in person in May and telling him what I feel about how Christians in Palestine, Muslims in Palestine, I mean, they are being slaughtered and nobody's doing anything about it. And we're funding this as Americans. And yet me as a Catholic American, I'm not allowed to say that a genocide is wrong that we're funding. You want to bomb the only Catholic church in Gaza and claim that that's okay? And nobody in our government says a word about it?
Yeah,
shame on them.
That's the final question for me, at least. How do so-called Christian Zionists in America see the footage, the photos, the way Christians are treated by Israel and think that that's okay? They get spit on. There's a Armenian community in Jerusalem. There's the Armenian Quarter. They get discriminated against. They get harassed by Israeli settlers all the time. Their area is now kind of under threat as Israel seeks to take it over. And so how do Christian Zionists, again, defend that? How do you defend that as a Christian? I don't understand.
Here's what it is. I've thought long and hard about this. They cannot defend it, but you know what? Their allegiance and they worship money and power and fame more than they have a soul. They are not willing to speak out because they're owned. They're slaves. They're not free people. Every single person on that stage that day was too afraid to get involved in this discussion. If they really cared about religious freedom, all of them would have stood up and said, you know what? Carrie's right. She's not an anti-Semite for being against Zionism. Her Catholic theology doesn't support Zionism, a political new ideology that was established in 1948. Give me a break. If they really had courage, they would have done that, but they didn't because they're too worried about their money and their access and their big organizations. Yeah. That's what I'm disappointed in. I'm disappointed in all those people, all those well-established people. I'm just a little mom in California that dared to have the courage to stand up for my faith, and millions of Catholics from across this world who support me and say, thank you. Thank you. You actually are the only one on that stage on Monday that cared about religious freedom, and you were willing to be fired because of it. And yes, I was.
Yeah, so last couple of things for me. And by the way, you're a regular American. That's why you actually have more credibility, not less credibility.
Yeah.
Because those well-established guys, whether they're politicians or they're pastors, have been taking money from the Israeli lobby for decades.
Yes.
So like they're literally bought by this foreign government, and then they tell their own parishioners, you are to shut up and obey this foreign government. But what's more troubling is what you said earlier about how people from the White House kept calling you and telling you not to criticize Israel even before this happened, right? So that means our government is compromised. And the reason I say that is, if our government has cooked up a religious liberty commission to take away religious liberty and force everyone to basically have allegiance to Israel, that means that's not our government.
No, it's not. And you know what? It breaks my heart. I've spent over 15 years, almost 20 years, you guys, defending this president. I've spent countless hours and arguments with family and friends and spent time away from my children. And this president wants to appoint me on the Religious Liberty Commission because he trusts me. He knows my past. He knows that I'll always stand for what's right, regardless of the consequences. And yet he doesn't trust me, that I know what I'm talking about, and that I have every right to say what I said on that stage.
I was watching a different conversation you had with Lila Rose, and you talked about your conversion from Protestant to Catholicism, and it's so obvious that you've done your due diligence and you care deeply about, the religious doctrine, and you understand it really well. So I give you a lot of credit for that, because you're not an actor. This isn't some attention-seeking stunt. This is something that you clearly care about. And I remember covering, your views on gay marriage. And obviously we disagree with you on that.
Yeah, and that's fine.
But that video was from a long time ago. So you've held these beliefs for a while now, so.
Yeah, and it's called America. We're allowed to state our opinions. We're allowed to disagree. We're allowed to have any religious beliefs we like. And for me, I'm an atheist, and I want to protect religious belief more than anyone does, because we're going to be the first one on the chopping block if religious beliefs are, if freedom is taken away. And so I mean, that's why part of why we love this country. But so since I'm an atheist, I got one last question for you. You say that it's your Catholic belief to not be in favor of Zionism. So help me understand that. Why is that?
Okay, so I as you can tell, I didn't think we were going to get into a theological discussion at an anti-Semitic hearing, but that's where it went. So to make it very clear, so Christian Zionists, mostly evangelicals, believe that in order for the second coming of Christ to come, there needs to be the Dome of the Rock in Israel needs to be torn down, and that there needs to be a rebuilding of the temple, of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. So what do you think that means? That means that they've been brainwashing Christians to hate Muslims, because we need to cheer on that, Dome of the Rock being torn down, so that way they can build the third temple, usher in the second coming of Christ. And then they believe that Jesus is going to reign in Jerusalem for 1,000 years. I mean, you guys, this theological supremacy, our founding fathers are probably rolling in their graves right now. This is not what our founding fathers wanted. They didn't want, yes, our nation was built on Christian principles, obviously. But guess what? They did not want one church, one specific, denomination of Christianity to be ruling every state. And so I'm telling, and I don't want to get too much into the theological aspect of it, but that's the Christian Zionist perspective. And
dispensationalism,
so
right?
Yes, dispensationalism. It's the Ted Cruz. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. They think that the modern state of Israel, that is the biblical fulfillment prophecy, that, we all need to cheer that on, that was God's plan to bring them back to the land. No, we reject that as Catholics. We actually believe that we are the new Israel, that we are the new people of God. The old covenant is now fulfilled in the new through Christ. That, the promises made from the old are now fulfilled in the new, and that we are the new people of God. It's very simple. And Jesus will come again. That's our belief, that he will come again to judge the living and the dead. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I grew up in the
hijack Christianity.
I grew up in the Apostolic Church, Armenian Apostolic Church, which is very similar to Catholicism. I've learned, and yeah, we learned the same thing in Sunday school. So
yeah,
dispensationalism. Like I learned about that a few years ago, and I was like, I've never heard of this in my life. So yeah.
And the crazy part about it is they think in the end, the Christian Zionists think in the end that 2/3 are going to be cut off. The Jews. So there's basically going to be a second Holocaust. This is what they believe, you guys. This is
crazy.
Theological insanity. And they've hijacked Christianity, and they do not represent us, real Catholics who've been around for 2,000 years. And this is not what the church has taught, and we reject Zionism. Yes, we are for the Jewish people to, live and let live. But guess what? We don't agree that 1948 Israel has any biblical fulfillment prophecy whatsoever. And I challenge any Catholic to challenge me on that.
Yeah, there's no question. It's not in the Bible. There's no United Nations in 1948. I mean, it's absurd. All of it is absurd. All the so-called predictions of the dispensationalists are not in the Bible either. It's invented. In fact, look, I don't know why they decided to write those particular prophecies. I don't know if Israel was clever enough to guide them in that direction. I don't know. But what I do know is, you just explained to us your deeply held religious beliefs. There's no one can argue about that. And they're saying you cannot think those things, because if you do, we're gonna label you an anti-Semite, and then consequences will flow from you being labeled an anti-Semite. So this commission is undoubtedly to take away religious liberty. And I keep asking why? Why in a country that is about 70% Christian is the president of the United States, with his voting base being largely Christian, saying you do not get to have your religious beliefs if it interferes with Israel's political agenda? It's stunning in the year 2026 in America.
Absolutely.
It is stunning. It is stunning. And I don't know if they thought I would just shut up and obey and just go along to get along and have access, but they obviously don't know me, because I'm not one to back down from the truth, and I will always stand for my religious freedom to stand up for what I believe in and not be punished for it. And let me just tell everybody, I'm not paid to be on this commission. I don't know if everybody knows this. This is volunteer. I am not paid. They pay for my flights and they pay for my hotel, and that's it. So I am serving the American people. I am the only one so far on this commission that is willing. Nobody's even spoken out about this. Why? Because they're too afraid. They're too afraid of the backlash. They don't want to be called an anti-Semite.
Totally.
They don't want to be called a bigot.
Yeah.
Oh, but they want to hide behind me. I have calls and texts. Keep doing what you're doing. I support you. There's people in the White House that support you, but they're too afraid. They call you the GOAT. Really? Well, why aren't you speaking out? You want me to take the heat for all of you?
They do, and you know what? It takes a special kind of person, I would know, because I think I'm one of them, to continue speaking out, knowing that you're gonna face some serious consequences. I've had family members harassed, their jobs threatened. They're not even political figures or members of the media. So I know, the stakes here, and I really commend you for not just talking the talk, but walking the walk when it comes to your faith. And even more than that, the fact that you know the difference between right and wrong. Because right now we're living in a climate where people are being pressured to support something that we all know is wrong, and that's the mass slaughter of innocents. So thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on that. And it's so when regular people email you or whatever it might be, send you a note and say, hey, thank you for fighting for us. That's beautiful, right? When people inside the government do it, well, number one, they're using you as a human shield, and that's weird. and it is cowardly. But number two, the more disturbing fact is, why are people inside the American government so afraid to speak out against Israel that they need a random mom to do it? Because if they do it, presumably they'll be fired. So is this our government or is it Israel's government?
That's what I want to know. It's a great question. I want to know, who are we? What is going on? Why are we talking about Israel? I told them at the intervention meeting at 7:30, they had an intervention meeting before the hearing went on, and Dan Patrick was panicking, and Ben Carson was there and Paula White, and they were like, we don't know what Carrie's gonna say. And they sat me down and they're like, you better not, disrupt this meeting. And I'm like, well, are we gonna talk about Israel? Because if you talk about Israel, I'm gonna talk about Gaza. So if you don't talk about Israel, I won't talk about Gaza. But they couldn't do it because they've brainwashed people, Christians and many other groups, to worship Israel. And like I said, I would rather die. I would rather die than worship Israel, a genocidal state that is committing genocide against innocent Palestinians.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's wrong. And I reject that. And it feels so free, you guys. I honestly feel so free. I'm no longer in chains.
Yes.
I'm no longer in chains. And you know what? I wasn't. I continue to post and I continue to tell them. And I have the emails to prove it. I have the text to prove it. I have all the receipts. I reached out to many people on the commission and I said, hey, they're trying to silence me for my religious beliefs. What do you think about this?
Yeah. No, Americans.
Quiet.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Americans don't bow, and they're demanding that we bow, and we're not going to bow. And Carrie's right. The minute you liberate yourself and say, I'll say whatever I want, you're not gonna stop me from criticizing any foreign nation. I don't care if it's Israel or any other nation. And this has nothing to do with religion other than you taking away my rights. So look, I want the audience to understand that's what the face of courage looks like. So Carrie, we really, really appreciate you joining us and for fighting the good fight on behalf of all Americans.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you guys.
Thank you. All right, guys, we're gonna see you tomorrow.